What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ultimate Debate Live. We have another great debate ahead of us here. It's your boy Oz, and then I got just Jeff. What's up, man?
What's up?
Oh, I can hear you now. I like your shirt. I like my shirt.
Except for, mine smells a little funny.
Yeah. But they have great messages. So what does yours say?
Mine says God is not dope, but in the pride colors.
Excellent. And then
what does yours say?
Mine says faith, because thinking for yourself is hard. So good shit. So how you feeling today, man?
Actually pretty good. I had my second dose of the COVID vaccine this morning, and I actually feel all right.
Good.
Except for the full body rash, but
ooh. Yeah, I've heard several people the effects or whatever made them pretty ill. But I guess
better than having COVID.
I was about to say it's probably better than the alternative. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Thanks, science.
Wouldn't be too upset, I guess is what I was going to say. But well, cool. Let's not take up too much time. I just want to plug two or three shows here this weekend that we have coming up. So what's today? Friday. Yeah. So tomorrow, Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern time, we have Derek Lambert from Myth Vision, Shannon Q, and Jenna Belk, and Dave Warnock join us. We're going to be talking about mental health and leaving religion and the impacts of that. And then Sunday, we have a full day. So I'll be with Derek on Myth Vision Sunday afternoon. Then we have a show at 7 o'clock with Jaytheist, former pastor, now atheist. We're going to talk about legalism, control, manipulation, and when is the organization you're in a cult? When are you in a cult? So we're going to talk about that. And then at 9, now I just slipped my mind. What was it? 9 o'clock? But we have another one at 9. So it's a jam-packed day on Sunday, and so make sure you're tuning in because it's going to be a crazy day. And then we are taking this Sunday off from Jeff's call show just because we were so busy. But he'll restart the normal schedule then on next Sunday at 9 p.m. So
you have Turn Up on the 25th.
Oh, Jesus. How did I forget that? Yeah. So the new content creators will be on with us Sunday. And then Randolph Richardson and Ethan from YNFA will be helping me host that. So those are always fun. I enjoy doing those. It's cool to help other people get their voice out and their new channels out there and all that. But Jeff, if you don't have anything else, we'll
just next week. Just remember, so we're taking a hiatus this week, but next week I have Natalie on the show, who's a geologist, and we're going to be talking about stupid TikTok arguments about rocks.
Rocks. You heard it here first.
Yes.
Sorry, Jeff. I didn't know you were going to keep talking.
No, we're gonna have a good show.
So, all right. So, TJump, Shane, the Skeptic. How are you guys?
Not bad.
Normal.
And I always know Tom's going to bring the energy. So I was so ready and geeked up. I was like drinking my Gatorade like Jeff, like getting pumped and ready to go. But Eddie, how are you tonight?
Muted. I'm doing good. Kind of making it, recovering from last night, that big party and everything. So
yeah, that was we all just got hammered last night. No, I'm kidding. No, last night that was a ton of fun. But Eddie's going to be the ref / mod for us tonight. So Eddie, thanks for hanging out with us and take care of business there. And then before we get into the debate, Shane, if you want to start us out, let us know about you, your channel, what you got coming up, and everything should be in the description already. But let us know what you got going on. And
cool. Yeah, my name's Shane Isgrig, aka Shane the Skeptic. I have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel. I just like to read books and pretend that I'm smart, but apparently I make pretty good content. So hopefully it's starting to pay off. I basically just do counter apologetics, debunking, debating, just all about critical thinking and philosophy. So that's me.
Awesome. And then TJump. I can't wait to hear what profession you've changed to this time. Last time I think it had to do something with hamsters or pigs or something. But what do you got going on?
I make terrible content screaming at Darth Dawkins. That's my content.
Mhm.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first. So for those that have not watched an Ultimate Debate live episode so far, kind of give you a brief rundown what it's going to look like, and then we'll get into it. The structure: 5-minute opening statements per person, and then 10-minute cross examinations, 40-minute open discussion, and then 5-minute closing.
Wait,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I thought it was a 10-minute opening statement. The text that I have was like 10-minute opening, 30-minute cross examinations, and then it was like I don't remember how long the open discussion was.
If Tom's cool with it, we can take the 10 minutes and put it at the opening.
I don't care. It's fine.
Okay.
All right,
So
cool.
10-minute openings, 30-minute, 30-minute.
All right, cool.
Yeah, the open discussion, spit it out. So we'll do that, and I'll put that on the timer. And then in between each round, Jeff and I will jump on and kind of go over, give a little review on what happened, and we'll go on to the next round. So if you guys are good to go, I will get Jeff and I off here, and you guys can get to the first argument here. So everybody set?
I am. I do want to say before we start, Tom, thank you so much for being willing to debate this topic. I know it's only been like 5 hours since you've released a debate about morality, so I know you must feel like you're beating a dead horse with this subject. So thanks for still being willing to continue debating it.
Yep. Thank you both for being here, and Eddie, again, thanks. And let's do it.
So we're doing the 10-minute opening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But as soon as you start talking, I will start the timer.
All right, sure. So I believe in objective morality. Right now, all of the empirical evidence we have only supports evolutionary-based morality, but there's good reason to believe that morality is something more than just an evolutionary process. Like, for example, if we discovered other species on other planets, and if we finally discover artificial intelligence or create artificial intelligence, then it's highly likely that they will have a model of morality as well, which means morality is probably more than something just evolutionary based. It's probably something more fundamental regarding minds, which means it's not subjective to evolution. It's something more than that. Like, for example, if we discovered artificial intelligence from other planets that were not pre-programmed with morality but discovered it on their own, that would be great evidence, proof that it had nothing to do with evolution. And if all the different species of life are all converging on a single model of morality, like if they are all progressing towards a single type of truth, then that's good evidence that there is some higher truth to morality more than just a subjective cultural thing. Similar to science, like if all the different species or cultures around the world and around the universe are all converging on similar facts that are learned independently, then it's a good evidence that those facts are true, have some truth at a higher level than just at the societal level. So if morality is equally as indicated by all the different cultures and different species across the planet, and they all come to the same conclusions or the same truths about morality, and that's good evidence that morality is something more than just a subjective basis of a human mind. And I think both of these facts are highly likely. I think that any life we find throughout the universe that is of sufficient intelligence will have a model of morality, regardless of whether or not it's evolutionary or not. And it's highly likely that all of these will converge, that as you get to a higher intellectual level, this model will become more and more similar across species. And I think that because of that, it is a worthwhile endeavor to try and figure out what this end goal of morality is. What is the final model of morality that all these different species will converge upon? And that model would be our description of what the objective basis of morality would be. And so if we have those two facts, if we do discover these to be true, that is very good evidence that morality is objective and not subjective. And I believe that those are both highly likely, and that's why I believe in objective morality. I'll conclude there.
Okay.
And as soon as you start, you got 10 minutes.
Morality and its questionable objectivity has been one of the most thought-provoking inquiries of philosophers for over 2,000 years. Many people have this concept that if there isn't a God, there can't be any objective morality, but if there is one, there can be. People like Tom argue that secular objective morality exists, which demonstrates the fact that atheists are not compelled to moral subjectivism, contrary to the opinion of many theists. In the time that I've studied moral philosophy, I've seen countless theists and atheists try to make the case for objective morality time and time again, and have quite confidently concluded that neither have ever effectively done this. My reasons for believing morality to be subjective are predominantly based on the following. 1. Hume's guillotine. That is, the observation regarding is and ought statements, specifically that statements about the way that things are cannot dictate statements about the way things ought to be, or vice versa. By the rules of deductive logic, we cannot derive prescriptive conclusions from descriptive premises alone. 2. My belief that morality pertains to rightness and wrongness regarding good and bad actions, and which we ought to do or not do. 3. My belief that the only thing desirable as an end for any living organism is the derivation of pleasure, and with it, the avoidance of pain. I'll elaborate on this later. 4. The fact that all the evidence we have seems to indicate that pleasure and pain, the most necessary variables of morality, are entirely based on human subjective desire. 5. The fact that people have a proclivity to believe that the subjective feelings which they feel the strongest about must be some revelation of objective reality. With that established, I'd like to move on to my criticism of Tom's model for secular objective morality. My first criticism lies within the definition Tom uses for the term objective immorality, specifically that it contains a contradiction regarding its objectivity. I've studied enough of his commendable work to know that we don't have incompatible definitions of the words objective or subjective, which means I'm able to call his definition of objective immorality a contradiction according to other definitions we agree on. Tom defines objective immorality as any involuntary restriction of will. My definitions of objective and subjective are as follows. Objective is anything that's existence is independent on minds either causing or interpreting it. Subjective is anything that's existence depends on minds causing or interpreting it. With these definitions in mind, here's why Tom's definition of objective immorality is contradictory. Objective morality means morality existing independent of minds causing or interpreting it. So to make the standard for it the sovereignty of will, something that's existence is dependent on a mind causing it, doesn't make any sense. So while I agree with involuntary restriction of will being a pretty good example of an immoral act, I remain in disagreement with the idea that it is the standard for morality. And I'm unable to make sense of how this standard for morality could possibly be objective when it's dependent on the existence of will, which is dependent on mind causation, therefore suiting the definition of subjectivity. To be clear, my thoughts on his model aren't strictly criticism. In fact, it helped inspire my model for universal subjective morality. I find Tom's view of promoting the best of all possible worlds to be a moral foundation I agree on, but something seems to escape the conversation when Tom talks about what he means when he talks about best possible worlds. It seems to me that Tom uses the phrase best possible world in two different ways and fails to make a distinction. Best possible world could refer to the best of all possible worlds achievable to us, and the goal of achieving this world works as a foundation for morality. I hold that the best of all possible worlds achievable to us would be a world with the most pleasure and the least suffering possible. This can be promoted by the most possible people increasing pleasure and decreasing suffering as much as they can. An example, returning a lost wallet to promote a world where less people experience the suffering they'd get from losing the contents of their wallet. The best possible world achievable to us would be a world where the most people return lost wallets they found. This can be promoted by returning a lost wallet, since it would be increasing the amount of people who returned lost wallets by at least one, arguably more. If I want to live in a world where my lost wallet would be more likely to get returned, then it logically follows from this moral system that I ought to return a lost wallet if I find one and can. Best of all possible worlds could also refer to the best of all hypothetical possible worlds. An example, a world with infinite pleasure, no suffering, and complete libertarian free will, as well as Tom's force field granted to everyone so no one can be forced to do anything against their will or without their consent. While considering the best of all hypothetical worlds certainly helps us make inferences beneficial to our moral epistemology, the type of best possible world I'm more interested in talking about and agree with Tom on as a solid foundation for morality is the best possible world achievable to us. Saying that an action would be moral or immoral in the best of all possible worlds in the hypothetical sense, adding that we ought to strive for the best of all possible worlds in the achievable sense, and concluding that therefore the action in question is moral or immoral is an equivocation fallacy, meaning it uses two different meanings of a word in two different senses of an argument. If the best of all possible worlds is a world which we can't live in, then acting in accordance with it is acting out of accordance with reality. Furthermore, I find that this model is poisoned by what can be referred to as the utopian approach. That is, according to Tom, the notion that if an action is moral or immoral in the best possible world, it must necessarily be moral or immoral in all possible worlds. This may be the easiest point that I have to refute. First, it seems to be committing a composition fallacy. That is, arguing that because a part of something is X, the entirety of its whole is therefore X. I believe this is what's being argued when it said that because X is immoral in a possible world, it is therefore immoral in the entirety of all possible worlds. Second, I can provide examples of actions which would be immoral in some possible worlds, but not all. For instance, in a world where the Atheist Roundtable was produced through the use of child slave labor, participating in this debate would be immoral, as it would contribute to the unnecessary suffering of children. However, in the world which we live, the Atheist Roundtable is produced by Oz, who, as far as I'm aware, does so willfully. So the variable necessary to make the same action immoral is not present in this world. So participating in this debate isn't immoral. Or if it is, it's at least so for some other reason. Now, I've prepared 4 deductive arguments for this debate, 2 of which I'll go over now. The first goes as follows. Premise 1, that which depends on mind causation is subjective. Premise 2, morality pertains to pleasure and suffering. Premise 3, suffering and pleasure are dependent on mind causation. Premise 4, therefore, morality cannot exist independent of mind causation. Conclusion, morality is subjective. Now the second argument. Premise 1, statements about the way things are cannot entail statements about the way things ought to be. Premise 2, statements about the way things ought to be are predicated on human subjective desire. Premise 3, morality pertains to what we ought to do or not do, or the way things ought to be. Premise 4, morality pertains to human subjective desire. Conclusion, since moral statements pertain to subjective desire, they cannot be objective facts about the way things are. What doesn't escape me as I propose my view is how disturbing the concept of a pleasure-based moral system may sound to anyone ignorant of what's meant by the word pleasure. This is a criticism common among those who fail to understand that pleasures differ in kind, and the kind of pleasure being referred to is not limited to the kinds of bodily pleasures experienced from the use of things like sex and drugs, but rather various kinds of pleasure, including but not limited to the pleasures which are derived from helping others, attaining knowledge, or living a virtuous lifestyle. It's been said that the idea that life has no higher end than pleasure is degrading, as even pigs experience pleasure, making this a moral system suitable to pigs and human beings equally. But it's those who make this argument that I think are truly degrading human beings, as they assume human beings to be capable of no pleasures except those which pigs are also capable. As John Stuart Mill writes in Utilitarianism, human beings have faculties more elevated than animal appetites. And the comparison made before seems degrading simply because a beast's pleasures do not satisfy human appetites. I challenge anyone listening who at this point disagrees with my assessment that morality is subjective to think of one moral or immoral action which could occur independent of any minds existing. Before I conclude my statement, I want to make clear that I'm not arguing that morality doesn't exist, but rather I'm clarifying the way in which it does. I would like also to clarify that when I say morality is subjective, I don't mean that it's arbitrary, and hold that it can still be universal among members of the social species of apes, which we are all members of. Thank you.
There's Jeff. My bad. I was trying to make sure that the timer didn't start screaming in everybody's ear. So,
Please don't.
Cool. So usually this one I just like to bounce it off whoever's hosting with me. So opening statements. How do you feel there, Jeff?
TJump does argue this a lot. In fact, he's my go-to reference when someone wants to talk about subjective or objective morality, because I think he's got a very well polished debate. We'll see what happens. The rebuttal. Well, I think when we get to the rebuttals will be great. Open dialogue will be fantastic.
Yeah. As we say, I think every time we have a ultimate debate live is the opening statement or argument is usually the feel out, kind of throwing the jabs if it was a match, feeling it out. But the one thing I didn't mention up top that I want to make sure, because I for the viewers, this should be fun. So when we get into or when we're done with the closing statements, we're going to Q&A. We will be posting a poll in the chat where you guys can vote on who won. It'll tally that for us. I think that's another way to make it interactive for you guys. So make sure you're paying attention to the arguments because you'll be able to interact with us there. So next is the 10-minute cross-examinations. So Jeff, we'll kick it over to these guys.
I'm ready.
Hey, TJump's chair's back. That's all you need right there.
Yep. Some people actually just tuned in for the chair. So
well, I
it's actually
tried
good
to get just a chair to my show,
Yeah.
but it
as
brought
long
two
as you get a few seconds of footage of just the chair, this should go viral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So 10-minute cross examination. TJump went first, so he'll go first on this one. And you're muted.
You should unmute him. Would be nice.
No, I muted myself. So.
Oh, okay. I was trying to blame Eddie.
Yeah, it's all Eddie's fault. Definitely Eddie's
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah,
All right.
everybody
So you said you had 4 deductive arguments. I only heard 2.
No, I only presented 2 within my opening statement for the sake of time, and they were the ones that I felt the most confident in. I do have the other 2 if you want me to put them.
Yeah, that's all right. We can leave that till later.
Okay, yeah, open discussion probably better.
All right. So you said your definition of objectivity is things that are not caused by a mind or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, existing independent of mind causation.
So did minds cause pyramids and buildings to exist?
Did minds cause? I wouldn't say necessarily no. I mean, yeah, minds are involved in it, but you could say like pyramids have been objectively built. Like it is objectively the case that people built pyramids.
So, and they're caused by a mind. They wouldn't exist if minds didn't exist.
Well, the pyramids aren't caused by minds. I mean, it's kind of like a.
Okay, I am thinking.
it's-
I have an image of a cat in my brain right now. Is that objective? Is that objectively
No.
an existing? What?
You can. Is
Like,
an image in your head objective?
My thoughts objectively exist, right? They're there. They're not.
I mean,
like,
sure, you could say that your thoughts objectively exist. It's
and
easy
they're
to get
caused
into
by a mind, right?
It's easy to get in the weeds with this kind of thing. No, you could say it is objectively the case that minds exist, but like that. So you can make objective statements regarding minds, but you wouldn't be making statements pertaining to the things caused by minds. So when you make statements about things like buildings, you're not talking about some subjective thing that people are just thinking of. You're talking about something that
Okay,
has
so
been
my
objectively
question
built.
is your definition of objective that included things caused by minds or cannot be objective. My image of a cat is caused by my mind. Therefore, by your definition, it's not objective, which is false.
The image itself isn't there's objectivity involved in the making of that. So the fact that you have some subjective thing involved in the making of something objective doesn't mean that therefore that thing must be subjective. That would be a composition fallacy.
I have no idea what you're saying. Your definition is just objectively false. Saying things caused by minds are not objective is false. There are objective things in reality that are caused
I mean, but
by
I'm
minds.
talking about caused by minds. I mean, it just seems a little bit semantic to argue that because I'm
Well, they're
saying
your words. I can't use not your words.
right, but it doesn't seem like you're charitably listening to what I mean by that definition. Because if I'm saying subjective things refer to things caused by minds, what I mean is directly. Because I don't mean in the sense of like, okay, I can think to do something, then do it. And then that thing too is that I did is subjective. Like the action itself is objective. Objective actions require subjective thoughts to begin their process.
Yeah, that still doesn't make any sense. So if you're ruling out things like the only things that can be directly caused by minds are thoughts. Like I don't like based on your words, there's literally
Thoughts,
nothing,
feelings, emotions.
and those objectively
let's-
exist. So things caused by minds can be objective.
No, that doesn't mean that the things, because once they are products of the mind, maybe product of the mind would be a better way of putting it. Because you can think of something and write it down, but the thing that you wrote down isn't a direct product of your mind. You wrote it down.
Right. So the image itself is like, there's not like the idea of a unicorn doesn't mean the thing the idea represents objectively exists, but the idea itself objectively exists.
So what do you, Tom, when you're using objective, how are
Like,
you defining
so-
objective?
Things
Yeah.
that exist true independent of any opinions or intuitions.
What do you, is that the same that you're using, Shane?
No.
Independent
said
of
things
intuitions, no. It seems like his are you saying that morality exists the way unicorns exist? Like
No.
you can think
So
of
this
a unicorn,
isn't-
but
I'm
the
not making any
idea
comparison to
is not-
morality here. I'm not making any comparison to morality. I'm just showing that your definition is false. So I'm saying that our idea of morality corresponds to something in reality independent of our mind. So it's not a product of thoughts like unicorns are. The problem is just your definition of objective is wrong. It's things that exist independent of opinions, which can be like my imagining a cat is objectively true. It is objectively true. I have an image of a cat, even though it's caused by my mind. So your definition of things being mind caused is incorrect. That's the only point I was trying to make there. This isn't my
Okay.
argument. For
I mean,
morality
I think that it's more what could be meant by caused by a mind is more nuanced than that. Because I could write something down, and sure, like there was subjectivity involved in the making of it, but the thing that I wrote down is then objectively written down. That doesn't mean that thing is subjective, and it doesn't mean that my thought was objective just because
So,
I started with it.
Real quick, Shane. Typically, when people are debating, the person that's on the affirmative defines the terms for their argument.
Okay.
So I think if you're going to stick to one idea of what objective is, and Tom's already given a definition of what his of objective is, I think we need to go with what his idea is and critique it from that angle, because that's
Okay.
typically how the debates are done.
Sure, I was just making the point that in my definition, like if I say that something was caused by a mind, there's some nuance to what that could mean by something being caused by a mind. Because if I say
it's
caused by a mind can mean product of a mind, such as a thought. But if you say, okay, I thought of something, then built it, and that thing objectively exists, that doesn't mean that the thought objectively exists, or the thought is objective.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like that use of terminology doesn't.
Okay, so we'll go with yours. So you're saying objective is existing independent of opinion.
Yeah, so it would be if it exists, it exists regardless of what you think about it. Like your opinion on the matter doesn't change it; it exists regardless.
Okay, I feel like if that, according to that definition, how would you differentiate between moral subjectivism and moral relativism? Because it seems like that definition would turn those into the same thing.
Yeah, this is Tom's turn to ask questions.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, I mean that's just so your first argument doesn't really make sense because it's not coherent or relevant to my definition anyway. The second one, your second argument was the is-ought distinction. In my model, something isn't moral because we ought to do it. We ought to do it because it is moral based on some independent set of criteria. So there is no is-ought distinction in mine at all. Oughts are something that we add in to describe what we should do once we know something is moral. It's not what makes something moral. So there's no is-ought distinction in mine whatsoever. It's just here is what the objectively moral thing to do is. That's the fact. We're done. And then we can say, well, because we know it's the objectively moral thing, then we add this. Well, we ought to do it to it. But the oughtness
See, but that is so I feel like you are still arriving at an ought statement from is premises in that sense.
There's no argument there. That's not an argument.
Well, it is because it violates the rules of deductive logic.
This is Tom's. This is Tom's chance to cross-examine you. You'll have to hold the questions until it's your turn.
Yeah. No, I didn't ask a question though.
Yeah. So you're wrong here. That's factually incorrect. As I just specifically said, something isn't moral because we ought to do it. Something is moral for some other. I have an echo, but I think maybe that's just on my end again. But,
okay, but
it's so if something isn't moral because we ought to do it. So the oughts do not matter. We don't ever need to say ought to know if something's moral. To know if something's moral, you don't ever say ought. Then once you know it's moral, you have an objective truth there. You can then say you ought to do it, or if you want to be immoral, you can say you ought not to do it. The oughts are irrelevant to my model completely. They're not in the definition of morality. If they are not required to define what morality is, then they don't matter at all to my model. They're just something we like to tack on the end that is irrelevant to my model entirely. So that argument, again, doesn't in any way apply to my model or many naturalist models. That's something that we tack on the end.
And you can respond to it, Jay.
Okay. My understanding of moral philosophy, like all of my understandings of morality, are that it does pertain to things that ought to be done or ought not to be done. So it seems like saying that if a statement is moral or if a statement is immoral, it's usually implied you ought not do that, and that's why someone would tell you something is immoral. So it seems like we're in a disagreement over whether or not morality pertains to what ought to be done or what ought not to be done. I would have to just say that we're in a pretty big disagreement on that part.
Well, it's pretty easy to prove. Like, is something moral because you ought not do it, or ought you do it because it's moral?
I'm sorry. How did that relate to the?
Well, it's showing that oughts have nothing to do with morality. So if something is moral because you ought do it, if the oughtness is what makes it moral, then that would be true. You can't get an is from an ought. But if you ought to do something because it's moral, based on some independent set of criterion, then you can know the facts of morality without ever putting in an ought. So you can say, based on this independent set of criteria, here is what morality is. There are no oughts anywhere in any of these criterion. We know what morality is. And then we can say we ought to do it, but that's not in the morality. It's outside of the morality. Okay, so
you're saying that the ought doesn't exist in the morality, that it's something that's tagged on. I guess that makes sense. It's just that if morality is irrelevant of ought statements, then I feel like a concept that doesn't have to do with that is a concept of morality different to that of the traditional or common understanding. It normally is, at least in the way that we use our language, when someone says that something's moral, they're talking about something you should do.
That's the end of this cross-examination. We'll flip it over now, and Shane will be cross-examining TJump.
Okay. So you seem to imply that agreement is indicative of truth. So you were saying, like, if we found some other species and they shared our agreement, they had some agreement on some certain things being moral and other things being immoral, that would be indicative of morality being objective.
Yes, if the experts in a field across many different fields all converge on the same thing, that's called consilience. Yes, that's good evidence.
Okay, so do you think that consensus is equal to truth? So, like, if everyone in the world, evidence. Okay, so, but my question wasn't about evidence. My question was consensus. Like, if everyone in the world, not just the experts, but literally everybody, thought that green was objectively, if everybody thought that green was the best color, would that mean that green was objectively the best color?
No, but it would be evidence. So obviously we have no absolute certainty, so we don't need absolute certainty for pretty much anything.
Yeah, we don't need absolute certainty.
And again, I'm not talking about everybody. I'm talking about the experts, the relevant experts in the field. So it's not everyone's opinion. No one cares about everyone's opinion. What we care about is the experts in the field. If they can come to the same conclusion based on the evidence, that is good evidence that is true.
But no, if it's just a matter of consensus leading us to the conclusion, it doesn't matter if it's a consensus of experts. Even if you're simply saying that if experts think that green is the best color, then it follows that it's an objective truth that the green is the best color. Like, every scientist in the world can say that green is the best color. It doesn't make it an objective truth.
Yeah, I don't care about green. I didn't say anything about green. What I said was, if many different species all developed a same system of morality independently of one another, that means there's some fundamental thing causing that system in the minds in all of those different places.
Okay, so you think you can have some way of differentiating morality as being from being just something that you imagine as some fundamental part of reality?
That is the theory, hypothesis.
It's the theory, but do you have evidence that that's the case, or is it just that you think that is the case?
No, as I said, if we discover other species, that would be evidence.
Okay, so you're not arguing from a perspective of having evidence for objective morality. You're trying to make the case for it with reason and not evidence.
Yes, as I said in my introduction, all of the empirical evidence is for evolutionary based.
For evolutionary, yeah.
And
Okay.
there are good reasons to think it's more than that, because morality is probably going to be in all of the other species of high levels of intelligence, and they're all going to converge on the same thing, exactly like what they do for science. So we have, if those two things are highly likely to be true, it is very reasonable to conclude morality is objective.
If they agree, like if other species, because I still feel like we're getting from this point of agreement to and consensus to being truth, and I don't think that is how truth works. Truth isn't a democracy.
It's literally
so
how
everybody
truth
could
works.
agree and be wrong about it.
It's literally, so the only thing we have is consensus. There's nothing higher than that. Everything we have, the facts are interpreted by people who are qualified to interpret the facts, and then we come up with, this is the consensus. The consensus is the highest form of evidence. There's nothing higher than that. That's it. We can't get to absolute truth.
Hold on. You think consensus is the highest form of evidence?
Yes, in science, that is the highest form of evidence.
That's not true at all.
Yes, it is. This is just basic philosophy of science.
I mean, I've even heard you say novel testable predictions. That's evidence. Consensus is not evidence.
So novel testable predictions have to be made and then confirmed by someone with their observation. They have to observe it.
Right, but the point is but that's not. It's not dependent on. It's my cross-examination, and I'm trying to make a point. Is that the evidence is not dependent on people having a consensus of it. The evidence is the experiment, which you can replicate.
Wrong. So again, you have to be qualified in a field to interpret the evidence. The fact that one person did an experiment doesn't mean jack shit. You have to publish that experiment and have it be confirmed by peer review, by the consensus, and convince them to show that you didn't have a mistake in your machinery, that you just weren't biased.
It's evidence prior to it being accepted by people.
Right.
That's why they accept it. Right. So you can have evidence that there isn't any consensus of.
The highest form of evidence is the consensus when everyone else says, yep, that's good, that it wasn't your machine were broken, it wasn't your subjective bias. That's the highest form of evidence in science, is that you got the field of experts to say, yes, that's good. That is the highest form of evidence.
The highest form of evidence, I mean, in pretends, I guess that depends on like what we're regarding, but to say that there's a consensus of something is evidence of it. I mean, I guess we're just in disagreement with that. I mean, I guess there are some things where that would be the best evidence you could get, but in regard to science, like the experiment is the evidence. Now, you could have the consensus, you could have the experts repeat that experiment and test it, and then that's why they're able to verify it. And sure, then it becomes the consensus, but the evidence is the experiment. The experiments which are repeatable are that's the best evidence that you can have of something.
No, again, that's false, because you subjectively doing an experiment could just be you under a delusion. So the thing that makes it evidence is the fact that other people do it in the field who are qualified to assess this. They do it and they come to the same conclusion and they tell you, yes, that's good evidence. That's the real evidence, is when you get all the other experts saying, yes, we agree with you. Like, that was a good job. We like your experiment because we did it too and we found it right. That's the highest form of evidence. That's when you can be like, yes, I'm right. Is when you get everyone else who's an expert in the field to be like, yeah, we agree with you. We concluded the same thing. That's the real evidence, not just that you did an experiment. That's just the first
not just I think I don't want to waste too much time on that particular argument, so I'll move forward from that. I think we've both
Shane, real quick, I was just going to say, if you make a point, he gets a chance to respond to it. So that's why I was letting him respond to it. So
I wanted to get to my next point, but he was in the middle of responding, so I wanted to let him. Okay, so you said that morality seems to be improving. You said something to the effect of like it improving in regard to, it's like following some pattern, right?
Yes.
Like moral progress. Okay. Well, this is true, I think, regarding the first world, but so 77% of the world's population lives in third world countries. Do you think that morality has improved in the third world as well?
Yes.
Okay. 24% of the world's population is Muslim, and Islam remains the fastest growing religion in the world. How do you reconcile a culture vehemently opposed to women and LGBT people having rights being the fastest growing religion in the world if morality is improving in the sort of pattern described earlier?
those aren't in any way contradictory. So one, Islam is also improving. So they like recently gave women driving rights in Saudi Arabia, a super religious country. There are gay rights being established in many of the Middle Eastern countries. The Muslim countries are also improving, but the model of morality states that morality improves proportional to resources. So
what would be an example of a third world country that morality is improving in regards to gay people getting rights, for example?
I'd have to look it up, but there's
well, you said that there are some, so I'm wondering.
Yes, there are many. You can just Google it. There are many examples of this.
Okay. I remain unconvinced, but I will look into that later to see whether or not I'm wrong. I already asked that earlier. So do you think that there is a property of goodness or a property of badness that this feature, like, it exists as a fundamental part of reality, and it isn't just something that we feel?
Yes, it's a higher order emergent property.
Okay, so goodness and badness are an actual property. Do you think that this property may one day be able to be measured with like some sort of device?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a goodness and badness property that you think will one day be able to be measured with a device.
Yeah, there's a higher order emergent property which we call goodness and badness.
I mean, I think there are things that we feel are good, that we label as good. Like I label pleasure as good, I label pain as bad, but I don't have any way to demonstrate that sovereignty of will or pleasure are good, or that suffering or an imposition of will are bad.
Okay. I don't care what you can do. Like, the point here is that, can we potentially do it in the future? Yes. The fact that you have one doesn't, I don't care. If we can, like, whether or not we can do it now doesn't make a difference. If we could do it now, I'd win a Nobel
Well, it does
Prize.
make a difference. If we can't do it yet, we aren't justified in saying it yet.
I never said we could demonstrate it yet. If I said we could demonstrate it yet, I'd have a Nobel Prize.
Right. No, well, I didn't say that you said we can demonstrate it yet, because you said that in the future we may one day be able to.
Yes.
And my response is that then we would be justified when that day comes, but that day hasn't come yet. So I don't see how we're justified in arriving at that.
Right. That would be proof at that point. We'd be more than justified. So the justification comes in is if you think there is some feature of reality that causes this morality thing in all conscious agents everywhere in the universe, and is causing the same pattern in all of these things, that's good reason to believe it's there, even without proof.
Okay. Well, I had more questions, but I see that we're getting to the time, so I will just get us to that opening statement. Or not opening statement, I'm sorry, open discussion.
All right. Oh, get it, Jeff. Get it, Jeff. So, cross-examinations are over. What say you so far?
Bruh, I still am undecided on subjective versus objective morality. And I think that when we were with TJump in Macon, the drowning babies thing was pretty easy. Like, it's objectively wrong to drown a baby. And I think that his definition of objective is how I define objective, like independent of any other variable, it's wrong to drown a baby. So that's how I've always viewed objective. Subjective would mean that under certain conditions and, other people's opinions or whatever, it's subjectively okay. In this case, like, it's okay if God does it, basically was what it is. So that's subjective to me. So, but I don't know if morality is something that is just a human construct, that is something that is outside of human existence. And I think his example of being able to find another species, extraterrestrial species, that had morality would, show that evolution is not necessarily part of it, or maybe it is, because evolution can work in both places. So I don't know, man. I don't know if this debate will clear it up for me, but it's still a ongoing mental discussion I have with myself, and I lean more towards objective morality. Just, I don't think there's a good reason to drown a baby.
No, I agree. And if that's not objectively immoral, then I don't know what the fuck we're doing here.
I don't know. It's objectively wrong to send a bear to eat children. I think that's also objectively wrong. It's not the right way to handle it if you're an adult. God, okay?
Adult.
Grow up.
Yeah, are we talking to the 15-year-old Jesus that just do whatever he want and go into temple talking shit to people? Or are we
Which
talking
may or
about
may not have happened. Who knows?
Jesus is myth? We already know that. But we just say that.
That's a debate for another day.
But so we're getting ready to go to the open discussion. That'll be 30 minutes. And this is usually when it gets spicy. So, Eddie, I hope you're ready. Hope Sweaty Eddie is ready.
Sweaty Ready Eddie.
I just got the next half a bar there on the next intro for Eddie.
Sweaty Eddie is ready.
But we'll do that. But here's what I do know. Jeff,
A haircut.
Faith.
Let's go. This is where the gloves come off. Let's go at it. Open discussion. Whoever's got a question, fire away.
Okay. I said that I'd bring up my other two deductive arguments, but really quickly, I wanted to see because I knew in advance you wouldn't agree with all of the premises, but I want to find out if you think the argument is valid. Just that for those who don't know, that just means that if the premises were true, that the conclusion would follow. The first one I presented was premise 1. That which depends on mind causation is subjective. Premise 2, morality pertains to suffering and pleasure. Premise 3, okay. Premise 3, suffering and pleasure are dependent on mind causation. Premise 4, therefore morality cannot exist independent of mind causation. Conclusion, morality is subjective. So if you agreed with the premises, would you think the conclusion followed?
Maybe. What was the argument again?
Okay, I'll just go quickly. That which depends on mind causation is subjective. Morality pertains to suffering and pleasure. Suffering and pleasure are dependent on mind causation. Therefore, morality cannot exist independent of mind causation. Conclusion, morality is subjective.
Possibly. I'd have to look at it in more detail, but it looks close to valid.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, so you disagreed that morality pertains to suffering and pleasure?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with suffering and pleasure. It's choice is what my view is. So you can choose to suffer, and that's perfectly moral.
Okay, so but what is it that makes, I guess, the sovereignty of will good? Because it seems that it could be deduced to the same thing. It seems like you derive pleasure from having the sovereignty of your will respected. So it seems like it could just be deduced back to pleasure on that.
No. So again, like you could not enjoy that. Like you could have that pleasure and then choose to be a slave, and that's perfectly moral. So you could have a pleasure of having your will not be imposed upon, and then you could choose to be a slave for whatever reason, and that's perfectly moral. So the morality isn't based on the pleasure at all. It's based on the choice.
So what do you mean exactly, Shane, by pleasure?
So pleasure, not just in the sense of bodily pleasure. Pleasure would refer to all things that please or are pleasant. This would relate to health, happiness, and it doesn't have. I guess it's one of those words that is kind of vague, doesn't have a particular broad definition. And I feel that in morality, that tends to be the case with a lot of the words that we use, like good and bad don't have particular broad definitions, but their vagueness kind of helps with our application of them in a sense. And
so would you say something like desirable or desirable that most people would desire?
I guess truth is we all desire pleasure. I think that anything a living organism does, it does it because it's convinced or thinks in some way that it'll derive pleasure from it. So I think anything that a person desires, they at least have some thought that they would derive some sense of pleasure from it. And some people might say, well, I could give you examples of people consenting to things that cause suffering. TJump, I saw you gave the example of waterboarding Christopher Hitchens, saying, he's experiencing a form of suffering from it, but it's not immoral because he's consenting to it. But he's actually deriving a sense of pleasure from the knowledge being obtained from what this feels like. So pleasure is still, I guess, the driving factor of any choice.
Okay, so just to clarify real quick, you're not talking about like, so you would totally separate that from like a hedonistic kind of pleasure.
I don't know if I'd say differentiate, because I think those pleasures would be included in pleasure. But I think that pleasures differ in species. So when somebody thinks of, somebody might point out one kind of pleasure, which is, let's just say, disgraceful, to show that pleasure isn't a good thing to base morality in. But pleasures differ in kind, and some pleasures are mixed with pains and some aren't.
Okay.
So yeah, again, it has nothing to do with pleasure here. You can choose to do something that you know you will hate and you will gain nothing out of, and your choice is still moral.
So no, what about suffering, at least? Because to me,
you can choose to suffer and know that it's going to cause you nothing but suffering, and it's still moral to choose that.
So it's not immoral to cause any amount of suffering to someone.
To yourself. Well, yeah, if they consent. Yeah,
if they consent to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think there are examples that usually get provided of somebody wanting something that most people would, experience pain from, and they get a sense of pleasure from it. But okay, so you don't think it would be immoral if someone with a mental illness came up to you and said, "Beat me up"?
A mental illness doesn't count here, because we only are talking about rational, intelligent beings. Applying a biological limitation that makes their brain incapable is not a relevant example to morality.
But it's a person capable of consent. Okay, so
they're not capable of consent. If you are mentally handicapped or you are underage, you are not capable of consent. That's the point. Consent only applies to rational agents, intelligent agents able to consent.
Right. I mean, I feel like consent is something that has various levels of it. So, like, we could say that a 15-year-old is capable of consenting to being vaccinated, but a 15-year-old isn't capable of consenting to having sex. Would you agree with me on that? Or do you think that there's no consent? Or, like, do you think there are various levels?
Yes, there are various levels. That's why I said mentally handicapped people don't count. I don't know what those levels are. There's not like an empirical way to prove what the correct amount of consent is, but there are clearly levels.
Okay. So, do you think that, I guess you already answered that. I just, since you don't think it pertains to ought statements, because one of the reasons I mostly think it's morality subjective is, I think that, I would experience pleasure is good and suffering is bad. And it is objectively the case that I'll experience suffering if you punch me in the face. But I don't see any way of arriving at, like, it is a fact of the universe that Tom ought not punch Shane. Tom shouldn't punch Shane.
Yeah, the oughts aren't in the facts of the universe. The facts of the universe, the objective morality.
So Tom punching Shane in the face is a bad thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see how we could demonstrate that, because we know that if we were to, box, for example, I mean, that would be consenting, so that would make a difference. But someone could consent to boxing and you could go too far. I think there are various things that a person could consent to that might not be moral to do to them. But I guess that would just come down to an understanding. I don't know how exactly to differentiate.
Well, you can differentiate between those by saying the person consents to this far, but not to this far. Like, the person consents to being knocked out, but not to being killed.
Okay. What is good about consent? Because, like, I experience, having consent respected and cared about. I experience that as good, but what actually makes it good?
Well, that's the conclusion of the hypothesis. So I'm saying that if we follow the patterns of evidence and moral intuition, moral progress, that's what I think the conclusion is. So that's what I believe my hypothesis indicates goodness to be.
Okay. I'm not entirely sure where to go on that.
There were some other things you said I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
You said the best of all possible achievable worlds versus the best hypothetical world, and acting in accordance with the best of all possible hypothetical worlds is not acting in accordance with reality, or something like that.
Yeah. So the point that I was making is, for one, I feel like it would be, any moral statement is a composition fallacy if it is saying, and I didn't know that you discluded ought from your moral statements, but I guess that was part of what I was saying, because my point was that saying that we ought to strive for the best of all possible worlds in the achievable sense, and then say, that action would be immoral in the best of all hypothetical worlds, is using the term best of all possible worlds in two different senses in an argument, which is a composition fallacy.
Okay,
but
maybe
you don't.
the way I'm interpreting your argument, it's like if we try to draw a perfect triangle, we obviously can't draw a perfect triangle in reality, because if we zoom in with a microscope, we're going to see there's little bubble shapes with the electrons. So obviously it's impossible to draw a perfect triangle in reality, but we act as if we can try to get as close as possible given our limitations to try to make as close as possible to a perfect triangle given our pragmatic reality. But that isn't acting against reality, is it? That wouldn't be acting in any way against the way the world is.
No, but that's different, because if you were to say like, and I know that you don't think it's rooted in suffering or pleasure, but if I were to say, vaccinating someone, let's say consensually vaccinating someone, if I were to say it's immoral to vaccinate somebody because in the best of all possible worlds, we wouldn't have diseases, so we wouldn't need to stick a needle in your arm. Therefore, it's immoral for me to stick a needle in your arm, but not as immoral as not doing so. I think that you have to act in accordance with the reality that you live in, the variables that are actually accessible to you. And if you were to say, it in some different world, like if I pushed you out of the way of a bus that was about to hit you, you could say, oh, that was immoral because you pushed me. And in the best of all possible worlds, you wouldn't have needed to. I think that's a composition fallacy.
How is that a composition fallacy? So to say something is objectively moral, so objectively means independent of any subjective opinions or whatever, subjective limitations. Imagine you didn't have any subjective limitations. You were an all-powerful being, essentially. If you are in the trolley problem, for example, the objectively moral thing to do would be to impose on neither the child or the people in the trolley.
Right.
So you just make them.
But that's
disappear.
The point, is that I'm not omnipotent. So
right. So I'm asking, how is this a composition division fallacy? So I'm saying that here is the objectively moral standard, independent of subjective limitations, and then we apply your subjective limitations. This is exactly like the triangle example. Here is a perfect triangle, which we can't do. Then we apply your subjective limitations to get as best as we can to that perfect triangle.
I don't see that being exactly like the triangle example, because if you're to say what would be the more moral option, and then you're saying like, well, if you were God, you could have just stopped the train full stop. If you're saying in a world in which if you were God, this action would be immoral. Therefore, in all possible worlds, it is immoral. You're saying that because something would be immoral in a part of something, that is to say that possible world, that it would therefore be immoral in the entirety of all possible worlds. And that is the composition fallacy.
So I'm not saying it. So my argument is here is the objective truth. Perfect triangle is an object that has three sides and 180 degree angles, blah, blah, blah. So now we have the objective truth of the matter. Now you can't do it. We know that you can't do it. You can't get the objective truth. Sorry, bad. Oh no. But we know that you can get something as close as possible. Here is the maximum accuracy you can do given a pencil and a piece of paper. Like taking this measurement, once you have an objective standard, which is an abstract objective standard, and then measuring how close you can get to that objective standard. There's no composition division fallacy in there. Like the argument isn't, I think what you're saying is that if you are using this argument to conclude this is objective morality, then it would be a composition division fallacy of some kind. But the argument doesn't use that argument to come to that conclusion. It uses the assumption that we have objective morality, we have the answer, and then once you have the answer, you can measure all actions against that. Just like once you know what a perfect triangle is, you can measure all drawings of a triangle against that.
Well, so my argument wasn't dependent on if you use that to conclude that morality is objective. I was saying that pertains to any moral statement where the first premise is in this other possible world you wouldn't have to do that, so it would be immoral for you to do in that possible world.
So there's I didn't mention possible worlds here at all. So okay. I said the objectively
you didn't say the words possible world, but you said if you were God. Like this is a separate world. So if you're saying like in that hypothetical world where you were God, it would be immoral to do that. Therefore, it's immoral in this world. But in this world, the variable that makes it immoral is not present. And if that variable isn't present,
morality doesn't matter here. So if you were God, you could draw a perfect triangle. You're not. you do this. Where's the composition division fallacy?
Okay, the composition division fallacy is in the beginning with a statement that if you were God, you wouldn't need to do that. So it would be immoral to do if you were God.
There's no immorality here. If you were God, you could draw a perfect triangle. You're not God. This is the closest you can do. Where is the composition division fallacy?
If you were God, you could draw a perfect triangle. I'm getting lost in the changing. So if you were God drawing a triangle.
I'll say both. I'll say both. So if you were God, you could draw a perfect triangle. You're not God. This is the closest you can do given your limitations. If you were God, you could do the perfectly moral action. You're not God. This is the closest you can do given your limitations.
Because it's that moral actions and the variables of them are simply too different from something like drawing a triangle.
The moral.
So if you were to say, one
second. So in a composition division fallacy, that's a fallacy of form. It doesn't make a difference what nouns you use. So saying that the moral noun and the triangle noun are somehow significant is irrelevant. For it to be a composition division fallacy, you have to say the part is like some property of the part is a property of the whole, or some property of the whole is a property of the part, or not vice versa, or whatever. But so saying morality here doesn't make a difference. Like, you can make anything you want. Triangles, pineapples, leprechauns, makes no difference. The structure of the argument is the same. So if you can't say that I'm like, where is the part? Where is the whole? Because I didn't say there was a whole and there was a part here.
Yeah, no. So the part would be the hypothetical world in which I am God, and then the whole would be, like all worlds. Like, so to say, it would be immoral to do something or drawing a triangle.
Yeah, use the triangle
me.
example. Say where is the all possible worlds and the part some possible worlds with the triangle example.
So that's one of the difference between the triangle example and a moral statement. That's
What's
one of the differences between them. That's why I'm saying so you're keeping them in this analogy, and I'm kind of saying they're not perfectly analogous.
Yeah, but how? You have to explain how, because to me they're the exact same.
Because moral statements
let me clarify.
Involve different variables.
Let me clarify real quick. A composition division fallacy would be like all the parts of the machine is made up of gears, therefore the machine is a gear. So that would be the most simple structure of a composition division fallacy.
That's a composition, right? Division would be saying that because every brick or every part of the wall is a brick, the wall itself is a brick.
Right.
Yeah, that's people in the chat were going crazy about what the fallacy is, so I just wanted to clarify, what the fallacy actually was.
So there seems to be no difference here. I'm saying here is one objective fact. If we know this is an objective fact, triangles have 3 sides and add up to 180, then you can measure how close you can get given your limitations. There's no possible worlds here. There's no part. There's no whole here. It's just saying here's an objective fact, and here's as close as you can get given your limitations. That's it. And it's the same with any objective fact. Triangles,
right? And the difference is there are significantly more variables to take into account in any moral statement or any moral equation.
Why does the number of variables matter?
Why does the number of variables matter? Because, well, this is what makes it separate in regard to the analogy. So if you're God trying to draw a triangle, that's one simple thing, and you're saying there's this one extra variable. But if you're saying, if you were God in the trolley problem, you're including this extra, every set of possibilities.
That you can do. So of all the things the God can draw, he can draw infinitely many things. He could draw a perfect triangle because there's this goal, there's a thing there that is the objective, and he can achieve it perfectly. So there is a goal, there is an objective of morality, and the God can achieve it perfectly.
Right. So in
both cases.
Right. But the difference is, okay, how to articulate the point is, I guess the difference is in regard to the vaccine example, it's taking the action of saying, okay, the best possible world looks like this, and this is a world where there are no diseases. So therefore, it would be immoral to stick a needle in somebody's arm, because in the best of all possible worlds, we wouldn't need to do so.
Still not seeing at all, because you'd have to show again, because it's the exact same as the triangle analogy. You saying it's different doesn't show it's different. You'd have to show how it's different, and somehow the number of variables here makes no difference. I can say God wants to draw a perfect triangle, a perfect circle, a perfect square, a perfect hexagon, etc. I can add as many variables as you want. The number of variables isn't going to change anything. It's still here the objective truth. God can do it. You can't. Here's the closest you can get.
Well, I tried to explain why the number of variables changed it, because what I was saying was, if you were to say, here's a pretty good example of why it's different, is if you were to say, if you were God, you could just make disease go away, so you wouldn't need to stick a needle in someone's arm.
Yes.
That wouldn't be a good way to conclude that therefore it's immoral to stick a needle in somebody's arm, because we don't live in a world where those variables are there. We live in a world with different ones. So we have to act in accordance with the ones that we
why
have.
Does that matter?
Because we have to act in accordance with the ones in the reality that we're in.
No, we don't. When we're talking about an objective morality, that means true independent of any subjective limitations. So when I'm saying there is an objective truth, I don't need to work in a world with my subjective limitations. Like, no, that's my subjective truth. So my subjective moral action is to stick a needle in somebody's arm. That's subjectively moral. Is it objectively moral? No. What's objectively moral, what's true independent of any subjective limitations, would be the standard we would hold against any beings in that situation of all possible limitations, including the most capable being. And so if the most capable being was in that situation and it stuck a needle in your arm, that would obviously be immoral, because there's a simpler solution that doesn't cause pain.
Right.
So the objective moral standard is, which is not contingent on your subjective limitations, would be measured against the most capable thing. And the subjective moral thing, based on your limitations, would be based on the best you could do in that situation. So where is the composition division fallacy here?
So, okay, I'm trying to re-articulate this. And maybe instead of the composition division fallacy, maybe I'm wrong about it being that fallacy. The point being made, the point that I can get to next then is, again, we're operating in different worlds. So I don't know if you had I heard this example in a discussion you had where you said, like, if an 1800s doctor cut someone's leg off because they got shot, it would be the least immoral thing to do. But it's still immoral, because, like, if they were God, they could have made them not get shot or something like that. So you said it's still immoral.
Yeah, so that's using the objective moral standard there. So
Okay.
you say it is objectively immoral because you have imposed on that person's will without their consent.
Well, no, they're consenting to having their leg cut off. So
presumably not. Presumably they don't want their leg cut off and they don't want to die, because a lot of them didn't consent to that, but their legs were still cut off.
Okay.
You're right that if someone consented to have their leg cut off for any reason, then it wouldn't be immoral. Granted, 100%.
Okay. So between, all right, I guess that's simple. So if somebody does an amputation in modern day, right, would you say that it was immoral to do so because, like, in the best of all possible worlds, it wouldn't have been necessary?
So it's objectively moral because it wouldn't be necessary in the world, but it's also subjectively immoral because it's not necessary in this world.
Okay, so something could be objectively moral and subjectively immoral at the same time?
No, but it could be objectively immoral and subjectively moral. I don't know, for it to be objectively moral but subjectively immoral. That one's tough. I don't know what that would mean.
Well, no, it sounds like right. No, that's what it sounds like. That's what you were saying. Maybe I'm wrong. It sounds like you just said it would be objectively moral. No, so it would be subjectively immoral.
It's objectively immoral to cut someone's leg off, and it's subjectively immoral to cut someone's leg off. So if in the modern doctor case, so it's objectively immoral because if you were an all-powerful being, you wouldn't need to do that. And it's subjectively moral because you're a doctor. You also don't need to do that. You could just give them antibiotics. So in both cases, neither one is necessary to cut the person's leg off without their consent. So in both cases, it's immoral. Now, if we go back to the 1800s, it's still objectively immoral to cut someone's leg off because they don't want their leg to cut off. But subjectively, it's moral because that's the best the doctor can do to save their life. So objectively immoral, subjectively moral, but I never objectively moral and subjectively immoral. I don't think that would ever.
Well, it sounded like you said that at one point. That's why I asked you about it.
Maybe I just said immoral really fast.
Yeah, maybe that's what happened there, because maybe that's what led to that confusion. So, okay, do you think that, so, like, if in situation A, it's a person getting shot in the 1800s, they consent to having their leg amputated, Then situation B, present day person gets shot, consents to a minimally invasive surgery. Are these equally moral or immoral? I mean, they're both
Yes,
equally
they're equal.
consent based. So, okay.
Well, yeah, anything consent based. If a guy today consented to have his leg cut off, that would be equally as not immoral. So if they're both consensual, if it's consensual, it's consensual.
Right. So what about, and I know this is a tough one, but like, what about somebody consenting to being killed and they're not somebody who has a medical condition,
Perfectly
you
moral.
know, they're not terminally ill. So you think it's perfectly moral to kill somebody as long as they ask for it?
Yeah, as long as they have the intellectual capacity to consent, they're like adults, no mental handicap,
Right.
and they're not like suffering from some debilitating mental disease that makes them unable to consent. Yeah, if they just like, I want to die, you know what, just want to experience it or whatever, perfectly moral to kill them.
So, okay. That's tricky for me because, you know, a lot of people could experience times in life, and a lot of people do experience times where they feel like killing themselves. And I hope this doesn't come off to the audience as an appeal to emotion, but like when I was 19, I tried to kill myself. I failed, obviously. Nobody stopped me. But I think that if someone had stopped me, while that would be an imposition on my will, that I would thank that person for it today. And that would be a moral thing.
Remember, I said no debilitating mental handicaps. So this is just a
Right.
person with no depression, just saying, I just want to die for no apparent reason. Perfectly moral. If they have a debilitating mental handicap that may incapacitate their ability to consent, then obviously that's not necessarily the moral case. So this is in the case of a rational human being able to consent with no debilitating mental handicap.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I guess there's nothing I could really rebut there. Just state that this is one of the differences we have, or one of the different positions that our systems would take us to, because I still think it would be immoral to kill someone just because they were asking for it. That is, unless they were terminally ill. Because like I'm for, you know, assisted medical suicide, but if it's under, I feel like there should be an application process, and I feel like there's a lot that goes into it, and you would have to have a lot of information which you may not be necessarily able to have. So if somebody comes up to you and asks you to kill them, you don't know about their mental state.
Right. So that's difference between epistemology and ontology here. So
right.
Ontologically, if it is factually the case they do actually consent to being killed, regardless of whether or not you know it, then it's moral to do it.
Okay.
But obviously in our world, obviously you have to epistemologically try to gauge that if that is really the case. Are they actually mentally capable to consent? Our epistemological means to try and reach that conclusion are relevant to the objective truth here. So if we're asking, is it moral? We're only asking about the ontology here.
Right. So you're saying it's moral if we do know that to be the case. Like if that's already granted that we know that is kind of it.
It doesn't matter if we know it. It's
okay.
If it's objectively the case, then it's moral. And in our world, we have to do our best to try and get to that knowledge to make it a reasonable conclusion.
No, obviously. I mean, that's consistent because according to what you just said, it could be the case that it would be moral to do so. But since, you know, like you said, the difference in ontology and epistemology, I suppose maybe a person could ask you to kill them and you might just not do so because you're unable to judge their state. And that wouldn't be inconsistent with your view. So I guess there's at least that. I guess at least we're not in as much disagreement as I thought, because
yeah, like you said, because we aren't omniscient beings who know everything. If someone asked you to kill them, you would first have to give them a checklist and say, well, is this something you actually are you of the age of consent? Can you rationally consent to this? Is it something you really desire, or should I not do this because you don't meet those criteria?
Okay, so I'm pretty sure you'll disagree with me on this. Do you think that morality is composed of or based on values?
No.
Okay.
I think values describe morality.
Yeah, I didn't think that you would. So can I ask you, whenever you provide an example of an immoral action, the one that you go with the most often, pretty good example, you tend to go with the, drowning millions of babies. Yeah. You know, that's pretty good example. Or as Robert Stanley put it when I was on his podcast, he said something like, I could club a baby in the face till it turns into spaghetti sauce and the universe doesn't care. Just wanted to quote him on that out of context. But why is it? Because in the story that you're referring to, where the God of the Bible drowns millions of babies, there's something that I noticed, and that is that you choose to use babies when you're presenting this. And he didn't only drown babies. He drowned all the people on the earth, all the other animals too. But you're able to say babies is the best example that you can think of an immoral action. And from my perspective, it seems like, yeah, that makes sense, considering the fact that you're a member of a species that has evolved to value its young more than its old.
Well,
so for this reason, human beings typically view. I have this idea that any.
Let me answer your question.
Sorry,
real quick.
yeah,
So,
you're right.
The reason I pick babies is specifically because if you pick the adults, the Christians are going to say, "Oh, they deserved it. They were the sinners. They were the baby eaters." Blah 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 blah. But they can't say that about the babies. So the only reason I use babies is an internal critique of Christianity because they can't use their classical apologetics on babies. That's the only reason.
Do you think
You both are using the God of the Bible fallacy?
The God of the Bible is a fallacy.
I like that. Okay, so that's fair. So do you think that drowning, because you explained why you used that example, but do you think, let's take millions out of it, say it's 10. Do you think drowning 10 babies and drowning 10 20-year-olds is like equally immoral, or do you think that one's more immoral?
Equal.
Yeah. Okay. That's consistent. So I will give you that.
There was no time on that.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's no. You turn the alarm off, Oz. We need to know how much time.
Just gave like a disclaimer. You are using the online alarm clock. Like, okay.
Yeah.
That's the online alarm clock fallacy.
Is Oz trying? Okay, he's on.
I was doing those rap beats, man.
I have no idea.
Did the time end? Is that why we're roasting Oz? We're about to start?
Probably.
Okay.
You signed
2 minutes.
signs.
You have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes.
Oh, we have 2 minutes left? Okay. All right. So, I mean, do you have any more questions for me? Because if not, I guess I'll put forward my other.
So if morality developed independently in like artificial intelligence, which did not evolve, would that demonstrate morality is not dependent on evolution?
As not dependent on evolution, perhaps. As AI, yes. AI would be yes. But to be like objective and true, I think no, because if that were the case, I think if we were to find some other species and they thought it was moral to, I don't know, kill every third child or something like that, and we had, if that was a common thing, or let's just take a more common immoral action, spouse abuse. If we found some other species and found that spouse abuse was common among them, I don't think we'd be justified in going, okay, well, we do it as humans, they do it. So it seems like we're reaching objectivity because we all see that as okay.
Right. So if we all discovered that they have the same mathematical equations, like to describe gravity, suppose we had no idea, there's no knowledge of the curvature of space-time. We just all had the exact same equations to describe the phenomenon. Would that be good evidence that gravity is objective, that there's something there?
If all the math added up from other, yeah.
Say like we all came up with the exact same equation. So we came up with the exact same models, not just we all think beating people is fine in this case, but we all have this very comprehensive model that describes the phenomenon very accurately, and there's a pattern to it, and the pattern is consistent across a large spectrum of experiments. That's good reason to believe it's true in some sense. It's probably something there.
True, yeah.
So like if we had models that described minds and how minds develop and grow and learn things, and this pattern happens to describe all the minds that we ever discover, would that be?
I'm sorry, I was almost just like ready to ask a question. Can you re-ask that?
Yeah. So if all of the different species all discovered a model that describes how minds develop and evolve over time, and this model accurately describes all of the minds in the universe, is that good reason to believe there's something about this model that's true about the universe that causes minds to develop in a certain way?
To develop in a certain way, yeah.
Okay, so if there's a specific feature of a mind, and this specific feature is in all of the minds in all across the universe, and there's a model to describe what causes or the pattern in this feature that's going to develop in all of the minds, is that a good reason to believe that the thing causing the pattern is objective?
the thing causing the pattern, yes. My disagreement
That's
comes
morality.
to where
That's the
no,
morality.
the difference though, and the reason I'm in such disagreement is because the goodness and badness are just a subjective feeling that you have, and they're not some fundamental property that exists as a part of the universe.
Begging the question, because I think they are a fundamental part of the universe. Or there were words that we use to describe a fundamental part of the universe, like gravity or stuff falling.
I don't see how that's question begging, but we're out of time, so.
Well, if you
Well, first of all, my apologies. I don't know what happened to the clock or all the feedback, but I hope you enjoyed all the screeching.
I wanted to bring it back.
Well, what I was going to say is they can do their they can. It's up. Well, you know what? Let's just bring them on. We'll ask. All right, we had the closing statements. Would you guys prefer to finish the closing statements, or do you want to do another 15 minutes or so of open dialogue?
I'm right, he's wrong. Next.
Well,
We do closings.
Closings? Okay. Give me 1 second. All right, so Jeff, real quick, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm still confused, but I think that again, I kind of lean towards TJump's argument. It makes the most sense for what we can understand right now, and there's not a good reason to drown a baby.
Not never, ever. Not never,
It's
ever.
objective. It's. I don't want to say it because I'm probably going to get it wrong.
Well,
There's just too many. There's so many. It's a multifaceted issue that should be simpler. Like you would think that it would be a simple thing to explain, but it's not. If we had an objective moral guide, like a all-knowing entity that could answer these questions, that would be great because we would have a ultimate source, an objective truth. But we won't find that, so we have to debate among ourselves like this. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go into the final or the closing statements here, I did want to, we'll see, since I've already had 10,000 mistakes here tonight, this won't hurt to try to see if this works. But I did, oh no, they won't be able to see it. Never mind. I did actually on a whiteboard.
Draw a triangle?
Do a diagram of the fallacy, of fallacy of composition. But you won't be able to see it the way I have it laid out. So never mind. But what I am going to do now is post a link here in the chat area, and that's going to take you to the poll so that you can vote. Because
Ooh, vote time. Oh,
yeah.
It's a very nice little straw poll.
So go ahead and go make your vote. That way people aren't just yelling and cussing at Jeff and I all the time because we didn't
Oh, okay. I see him tallying up.
choose who they want us to choose. So everybody, these are the closing statements. I'll have the clock ready to go. Thank you, everybody in the chat. We'll give you some shout out here after the closing statements. And remember, Q&A is next. So if you want to start getting your questions together, go ahead and do that. But let's get it in.
Closing statements.
Oh, is that what
I
we're
guess-
doing?
Yeah, I guess Tom goes first since he went first, and Shane gets to finish up.
Okay.
Normally in
I was
debates,
just going to
like,
sit here and look pretty, so.
and normally in debates, you change it up. The person who does the opening does or something like does it backwards. They flip it normally, I think. But so yeah, my closing is that I believe that morality is objective because I believe that there is a feature, a model that all different species across the universe are going to converge upon that is going to be just like different models of gravity or models in science, and that all different versions of intelligence, high levels of intelligence, will come up with a model of morality or discover it on their own, independent of evolution. And I think that just like if you could create a model to describe some patterns in minds, that if some pattern that describes how minds evolve and that applies to all minds in the universe, if you can describe a pattern that describes a certain feature of a mind, then there's also probably some objective quality to that feature itself. So I think that, yes, Morality is very probably objective, so I lean towards moral realism. Obviously, we don't have any empirical proof. If we did, I'd have a Nobel Prize, so working on it. But I think that we have good reason to conclude morality is in fact objective, and as Jeff said, drowning babies is wrong objectively.
Okay, I guess I'll go now. So I guess it seems to me that people have this proclivity to label their subjective feelings that they feel the strongest about as being objective or some objective part of reality. You'll see this in lesser examples where somebody thinks something is, the best food or something, but that's something that's a lot more obviously subjective. I think when it comes to morality is something that we feel very strongly. So it's really hard for us to not, I guess it's hard to make a distinction between morality. I'm sorry, I stumbled on my words. The point that I was making, I got distracted by the live chat. I've never fucked up like this in a closing, my bad. Oh yeah, so people have this tendency to label their strongest subjective feelings as being objective facts, and I feel like that's what's happening with morality. I guess when I say that morality is subjective, I'm not saying that objective truth is like completely irrelevant of morality. I guess what I'm saying is that the universe itself does not care. There's no fundamental property of goodness or badness in the universe that is actually a part of reality. It's something that we subjectively feel, and I guess I'm glad that he said he doesn't think there's evidence of it. He's just making a case for it. But I think that given the lack of evidence for moral realism and the fact that I know human beings already have this tendency to label their subjective feelings as objective facts, my understanding that again, there aren't any examples that I've ever been presented with of moral or immoral actions independent of mind causation. I feel like your disagreement with me on morality pertaining to suffering and pleasure is something to really put a lot of focus on, because I feel like if you talk to almost anyone about any immoral action, if you ask someone to name an immoral action, they will name an action where somebody is causing suffering. And if you ask somebody to name a moral action, they will provide an example of somebody increasing somebody's pleasure. And again, pleasure can mean health or something like that. So I feel like my concept, I just kind of makes better sense of the way that we use the word morality. If you are to adopt TJump's model, it seems as though you're sort of redefining what morality is as the sovereignty of will. And it seems like an unnecessary extra step to me. I'll leave it at that.
That guy has a lot of feelings. Did you notice that?
Yeah, his mom must not taught him how to brush his damn teeth.
Is it objectively right or wrong to brush your teeth?
God damn it. I don't know at this point.
Is it objectively right or wrong to not know?
I think it's subjectively objective that it's something. Faith is bullshit.
When's the Faith is Bullshit TART revamped t-shirt limited edition Oz model? I heard you were individually signing Faith is Bullshit calling cards.
Yeah, my hand's sore from all the non-autographs that I gave. So in the chat here, I'll post it again if you haven't already.
It's close, dude. It's close. You can see the results right now. It is 6-5 votes.
Go give a vote. Close. Who you think won the debate? And the fact that we got about 40 people watching and only 9, 10, 11 of you.
This is what's wrong with America. You guys don't vote.
Listen, just go vote. Just go vote.
You don't even have to go to the polls. You just have to click a link in the chat and click a square.
It's huge. It's huge.
We just had a change. 7-5.
Oh boy. All right. So next we're gonna do Q&A. So if you guys have questions for the debaters, the master debaters, go ahead and start popping the chat there, and I'll let Jeff ask the questions today. We can get down to get down to the nitty gritty here. And while we're doing that, I'll keep an eye on the poll. One more time there, the last link there we put under TART there in the chat. That is the link to go and vote who you believe won the debate tonight. And we'll rock it out. So we'll bring these guys back on here and have a little fun before we wrap it up. All right. Well, I'll say this. Thank you very much, everybody on screen here that helped tonight. TJump, Shane, thank you guys for a great debate and keeping it respectful. A little spicy a couple times, but keeping it respectful and cool. We appreciate that. But Jeff, I will let you take the reins here. I'm going to go watch the numbers and try to get you some questions going here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're getting some questions on the screen. In the meantime, TJump, how's it going? Great. Sounds great.
You're muted, TJump.
I'm just gonna blame Eddie. I don't know. Don't anyone tell me who muted him. I'm just gonna blame Eddie.
Everybody blames me.
Argument is one that I always kind of want to discuss, but not debate, because I don't think I formulated an opinion on the matter.
Right. Well, one thing I wanted to say to you, Jeff, is it seemed like when you were talking about moral objectivism, you were describing moral absolutism. Are you familiar with the distinction between the two?
No, I have no idea.
So moral absolutism would be like this proposition is absolutely, it is immoral in any circumstance, right? As to where objectivism, it gives you the ability to have objective morality that is actually more situational. So
all absolute morality is objective morality, not all objective morality is absolute morality.
So drowning babies is absolutely wrong under all circumstances.
Wrong.
So it would be objective and absolute, but some objective moralities don't have sentences or statements that are always wrong. So absolute morality says there is at least one principle that is always universally wrong. Objective morality just means there is some model of morality that is out there that is true, independent of opinion, but not any of the statements necessarily have to be the same in all of them. Like a God could be an objective morality and he could just deem it that, nah, you can drown babies. That's fine.
Yeah.
But then don't drown babies here. It's still objective because I'm God.
So would you say then, TJump, that most Christians have a subjective view of morality?
If you're using the philosophical definition, no, there should be objective because the objectivity doesn't come from the statements, but it would be a relative model of morality because it's based on God's mind, which is where the arbitrary part comes in. So it's
but isn't that like subjective to his mind?
Yes, that would be technically subjective to his mind, but since the ontology of where the morality comes from is where the objectivity is, which would be some part of God. It's like there's a moral object, and that object can change, but the object's existence is what's subjective.
My opinion,
unless they argue from divine simplicity, which brings up other issues. But
I used to have this view, and I still somewhat hold it, but I'm not so confident anymore. I don't know where I lean exactly, but I used to have this idea that morality is even more subjective if God exists, or even if a God exists, it can't be objective. And I guess one of the arguments that I heard proposed was that even though God would count as a mind, if it is the mind that makes the facts of the universe, and that mind made it the case that X was immoral, since it makes the facts of the universe, it would be a fact that X was immoral. So I guess it does kind of make sense to say from that perspective that theism could give you some sort of objectivism.
It just seems to me that they don't know what their morality is. So therefore it must be subjective because they can't define it. They struggle to define. I mean, just again, I hate going back to
that doesn't follow, Jeff. That doesn't follow. But if one argued with, if one argued from a non-constituent ontology, like with divine simplicity, then there wouldn't be a mind. But again, that brings up other issues. So,
yeah, I don't know what you said, but thanks.
I love you, Jeff.
I don't know what that means. I just know that drowning babies is wrong, and God drowned
so babies. You'd be a moralist.
So
you're on the right path.
Immoral.
You would be on the right path.
Yeah. but I am. I've discovered Fiverr, and like having people make artwork for me, and being able to like work with somebody on artwork and doodles and things like that. And it's kind of fun because I'm trying to find a good doodle of a bear ripping children apart so that I can like make a shirt that talks about, you know, them making fun of a bald man and killing children. And so I'm like, hey, can you make a doodle of a bunch of kids in attire that's like Middle Eastern and ancient, and a bear ripping them apart in a doodle, like cartoon style? And the guy's like, no problem, man, I got you. And 2 hours later, he's got an image for me. All right, we have a question. This question is for TJump. TJump, what makes you so confident that we will find that all intelligence will converge on a common morality? I think he meant to say find, but I'm going to read it as it was
Fond
written.
is correct. Fond is correct. Like bond. Yeah. So I think that the reason to conclude that is because I believe that as we observe moral progress in our societies, there is a clear pattern that morality changes based off of the amount of resources and availability of intelligent people that you have. And the more availability of resources you have, the larger the scope of morality happens to be. Like we see moral progress in LGBT rights, women's rights, voting rights, et cetera, and those all happen when there's an abundance of resources to allow for that, without damaging the society. And that pattern seems like it's going to hold across all species, and it seems like that they're going to change their moral perceptions, are going to likely change according to their resource availability, just like it does for ours. So it seems like that this model of morality, this thing that we feel, is likely going to hold across species everywhere in the universe.
Can I add a little to that, Jeff?
No.
Okay. No, I was just going to say this is one of, I mean, yeah, this is one of the reasons I don't think that the moral argument for God is very powerful, is because we all have generally, you know, the same experience that we don't want things bad to happen to us. We don't want to experience suffering. And we all kind of have this intuition that certain things are bad. So, you know, you can easily ground, you know, what we should do and how we collectively don't like suffering. So
that existence is suffering. That's all I know. That's all the human condition is.
Right.
It's a lie. It's
so
not
when I
true.
when I talk about morality, I tend to, you know, bring up the fact that everyone subjectively experiences suffering as bad. So, like, why is it bad to do that? You know, it's a fact that causes suffering, and we subjectively experience suffering as bad. So I could say that it's bad to do it, even though it's subjective. It's based on something subjective, a subjective preference that is universal, or at least agreed on.
That's not actually true. So there are certain kinds of mental states, like the bacteria that goes into your brain and causes you to want to do things. It can cause you to want to do things with no reference to suffering or pleasure. It just causes the electrical signal in the right part of your brain. So it has nothing to do with pleasure or pain at all.
It's true.
So there's pleasure and pain aren't actually the reason people do everything. It's just the predominant reason.
Like, what about
Shane,
people
would
that
you
are-
agree? Shane, would you agree that moral relativism is not tenable?
More to that later. We got a question here from Theo.
Well, this was kind of important. Okay, go ahead, Theo.
Okay. Am I striving for objectivity in my morality?
Question for Shane: Is you striving for objectivity in his morality?
When I first started studying moral philosophy, I wanted to believe in objective morality, and I feel like I was trying really hard to justify it. I just never found any good justifications. I guess I could say that I wanted universality, so that would be the closest thing to objectivity. Given that I hear myself say closest thing to objectivity, I guess I could say yes. I'm trying to get as close to that as we can. I just don't think that we can.
Next question. Oz, next question.
Is Oz playing music?
But I wanted to know, is there an example of something someone could like choose to do that would have that would have nothing to do with a desire for pleasure, or wouldn't be their cause of it?
Yeah, epilepsy, like you can just have an epileptic shock. Someone can zap your brain. You can choose to do something that didn't have.
Oh, sure,
anything
but
to
I'm
do with your
talking. I
brain.
guess I'm referring more to choices.
Well, those are choices. So choices are just determined things by electrical signals
Like
in
a
your brain.
seizure is like a choice.
Yeah,
like an
choices. There's choices is literally just electrical signals in your brain. There's choice isn't like a thing that exists outside of your neurological state. So there's different causes to your neurological state. Some are internal to your brain. Some are from tumors. Some are from electrical signals. Some are from bacteria. There's lots of different things that can cause different electrical signals, which are what your
Right.
choices are. And those signals can be caused by things other than the stimulus from pain and pleasure. I was just giving some of the obvious examples, but other electrical patterns in the brain
Jesus.
Tangelo.
can cause choices other than those two kinds of electrical signals.
Antangelo says, that's not a question. This is Q&A. Get that out of here.
I don't know why you guys give him any attention.
Question for Shane.
Your thing.
He's funny. He's hilarious. Like we need to bring him on here just to listen to his voice.
Count Chocula
Give me
or
that.
Blueberry?
Fuck. This is the toughest question of the night. I'm gonna go with Count Chocula.
Those are
Thank
Thank you.
those are both
Thank you.
disgusting. Those are both disgusting. I don't
That
know.
is
TJump, listen.
objectively true.
Like
If your subjective taste buds don't count towards the objective truth that Count Chocula is the loser to Blueberry.
No, chocolate is objectively good.
What if you're allergic to chocolate?
That's empirical. It doesn't matter. It's still good. You just
No,
can't
it
eat
isn't. It's not good for dogs. It's not objectively good. It's subjective
Good
to
thing
your
I'm not
human
a
taste
dog.
buds.
We're-
And the electrical signals in your brain,
morality-
like TJump said.
And morality is neither objective or subjective to dogs either. So that's
Yes,
a
it is.
category error. No, it's not.
Dogs have their own morality. What are you talking about?
But you're
Oh.
saying dogs' morality is neither objective or subjective? What's the third option?
Dogs don't have a morality.
Yes, they do.
I think they do.
So we put
I
them
don't
in
think
jail
they-
when they rape other dogs.
What
We
are you
kill 'em.
talking about?
I feel like animals.
that's the legal moral distinction.
I
Like,
could be.
Yeah, what are you talking about here? Dogs absolutely
Oh my God.
have an objective moral standard.
I don't know about-
Okay.
are laws and rights an example of objective morality? That's the legal moral distinction. The fact that there
We
are
just said
laws doesn't make it right. The rights, if you interpret rights to mean some objective feature of the world, it can be. It depends on your definition of rights. So some people define rights as intrinsic to what morality is describing. So those can be.
Eddie, are you mean to
Right.
dogs?
Well,
No, but Tom makes a good point. That's
No, but the reason-
just because we put the laws around certain morality in animals doesn't mean that's necessarily the moral thing.
I think you're mean to dogs.
Bro, I love dogs. I probably love dogs more than I do people.
So
And I
then
hate
why
to
do you think they
admit
don't
that.
have an objective moral value?
Well, that
We'll
doesn't
get
mean you're
into
not
that
mean to
on
dogs.
another
So-
show.
Hold on, Antangelo wants to say something here.
We'll get into that on another
If
show.
there is
then.
no God and moral values are subjective, if that is so, why should someone behave in a socially acceptable range? AKA Jeffrey Dahmer. This is one that the theists love to pull out
well,
because they go
so-
off the deep end. They're like, well, if there's no moral values, then I guess I can just go rob a bank, rape people, and shoot
yeah,
stuff.
but he also made a leap there from no God to subjective morality.
But he
And
also
there are moral realists that are naturalists, such
Well,
as
bring
Oh,
up
but he
Angelo's
also
question
made a
back up.
leap from no objective standard to no standard. Because
Right.
I'm proposing a standard. It's just that the standard is subjective. So, if you were to ask me, why do I think? Where's his question? Like, why would
Bring it
it
back up,
be-
Oz. Click the buttons.
The chat here is slow. Yeah.
There you
So
go.
if there's no God, moral values are subjective. If that is so, why
Just
should
start
someone
with that.
behave in a socially acceptable range? Because we subjectively experience people, anything that we're calling not acceptable, we're calling it not acceptable because we experience it as bad. And if we experience it as bad and we want to minimize the experience that is badness, then we shouldn't do that.
Here, real quick, I got some badness for you. Tommy Jumps. Which debate champ was a more sincere debater, Jeff or Darth?
Darth.
Ooh.
Jeff knows he lost. We have
What?
footage.
Come on.
pictures.
Don't hold it against me.
I
It's
say
Jeff's
Tom.
fault. Jeff bribed the judge. I have
How did
evidence
I
of this.
bribe them? They knew you.
I have a PayPal reference that shows Jeff's name
Oh,
there.
don't get my PayPal. I don't want to go down.
Tom and Jeff with the big giant gloves that you see at like the sports events in baby oil It's going to happen on TART. I
Baby
guarantee
oil.
it.
We're doing the mud
yeah.
wrestling.
I was almost gonna joke at the beginning of the debate. I was gonna say, Tom, I heard you lost to Jeff. Who loses to Jeff? He's just Jeff.
Oh,
I
Hey,
took
hey,
I took
let me
quite
say
a few. They were close.
I say that because I lost to him right after.
Jeff brought his A game. Now I'm not saying that he beat Tom, but Jeff brought his A game in that tournament.
It was definitely a controversial.
Thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, he got some of his arguments from the fucking live chat.
But he lost it. Yeah, he lost it to
Yeah,
but he brought his A
no.
game.
He was no. I just wanted to say one thing about my debate with Jeff, and
God. I
despite
forgot
losing,
that both of these people.
there's one
Why
thing I
would you
want to
do
say.
this
Let's
to me,
wait. Let's double team him now. No, I was going to say one thing I wanted to say about my debate with you, Jeff, was that even though I lost, I think that might have been my favorite debate, and the reason for that is just at the beginning of it when I pointed out that you were committing which fallacy was it? The slippery slope. I explained what that fallacy was, how you were committing it, and that is the first time in my life that I've told someone they were committing a fallacy, explained it to them, and their response gone, yeah, I guess I am committing that fallacy. I've never had that in my life, and for that reason alone, that's the best debate I've been in. I don't need to win. If someone could just accept one thing, like, you know what, I'm cool with it. So,
ladies and gentlemen, the troll-faced weasel.
I just like arguing.
I was after the debate. I called him that. I was like, she was like, what happened? I'm like, I made it to the third round. I lost to just Jeff, the fucking weasel faced troll. And I forgot that, like, she hasn't watched this show. So she thought I was actually like a really sore loser that day. And she was like, wow, I've never seen you lose before. It's just this moment of like, wow, I'm with a really fucking sore loser.
Jeff does like arguing. That's for damn sure.
I had my whole day planned out for that. So I had my day planned out because I had a track event the next day that I had to get up real early for. So I'm like, all right, I'll go with Cease. Cease will do his thing. Maybe I'll beat Cease. I don't know. And then TJump will knock me out. And then I can go work on my car and get my stuff prepped and listen to the debates. And the whole fucking day was ruined because of that. And then yours. And then moving on. And then I was like, midnight before, because I was doing 3 to 4 debates in a row. My mind was jello by the end of it.
Yeah, definitely suggestion for next time. Just do one row of the bracket per day.
All right, so I got 2 more questions here. I'm sure we'll get more, but I do want to ask this one just because I want to. Then Jeff, I'll kick the next one to you. TJump, follow-up question. Tommy Jump, what's your best defeater to the ultimate in a non-God world for the best coffee brand?
Is that supposed to be coherent? Like, what is?
Listen, don't interrupt me. First off, not non-God world. How can you justify ultimate non-God world with a non-God coffee?
Motherfucking.
Well, I don't understand the question because so what's the best defeater?
That's because you atheists are deceptive.
I'm going to repeat the question with a louder tone.
Emphasize the nouns.
Yeah, emphasize.
All right, Jeff, kick this one over to you.
Okay. From Aunt Kathy. Is subjecting oneself to moral standards objective to the majority?
I don't know how to answer that. I'm just going to be straight up. I don't know how to answer that.
It's subjecting oneself to moral standards.
Objective to the majority.
I got a. Please check.
Like, just shut the fuck up, Eddie.
Somebody just kicked Eddie off.
All right, Eddie.
Just check the private chat, please.
No one wants to hear you. This is atheist talk time.
Yeah, real quick, so nobody thinks I was being a dick. I just read the private chat. He was like, "Hey, I need to slip off for a second." So literally, as he started to talk, I hit it. My bad, Eddie. Go ahead.
Perfect timing.
Go ahead, Eddie. Oh, jeez.
Not that go ahead. Go ahead and answer the question.
Oh, God.
Now he's not coming back on.
Is subjecting oneself's moral standards objective to the majority?
I feel like
I think there's like 2 ways to interpret that. One is that is you believing you are under an objective standard, and so you are subjecting yourself to that objective standard, mean that objective standard applies to the majority, in which case, if you believe it's an objective standard, it would apply to the majority. The other way to interpret the question is subjecting yourself, does every individual majority in the majority subject themselves to an objective moral standard? In which the answer is also yes. The majority of people believe in objective morality and do subject themselves or claim to subject themselves to objective morality.
I don't know.
I don't get the grammar of the sentence. So,
Well, let's just be honest. Language is just
no, language is a tricky thing, and English is a particularly fucked up language.
Yeah.
Ever since,
Hardest
what's
one.
funny? Ever since I started learning Japanese about 2-3 months ago, and it wasn't until I started learning a second language that I realized how fucking bad I am at the one that I speak already.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, before I go learn a bunch of Japanese, because I learned the alphabet, I learned hiragana, I know, I don't know, 50 phrases or something. But I'm realizing, I'm like, dude, half the time when I speak English, I'm like, wait, did that adjective go after the noun? Wait, after
It's
that
almost
adjective?
like a group of people purposefully made it difficult in order to assert themselves to a higher class system.
Yeah, something.
It was the French. It was the French.
It was the French that made English.
And there's our Shroud of Turin. That must be Tangelo's in the chat.
Does he believe that thing?
My dad tried to pull the Shroud of Turin out the other day, Oz. Telling me it was real.
Atangelo and I were going to debate the teleological argument once, and then he said he wouldn't debate me because I said fuck, and then he debated a few people who say fuck ever since then. So, I don't know. To be honest with you, when I accepted the debate, I didn't realize it was him. The account said Tangelo, and I was like, who's Tangelo? I'll debate him. And then I was like, oh, no. He just disguised himself by hiding the O. And I don't remember what he said that set me off. I don't know. It didn't work out. We didn't end up debating, and I'm uninterested now.
You should just go by Jello. Jello would be such a cool nickname.
I'm going to make an alt account then that's on Jello, onto Jello or something like that.
Onto Jello.
On Jello.
Speaking of chairs, I was going to say, I thought about in my closing statement, just kind of like as a joke, just being, your chair's ugly, boom. And then just doing it. And then I realized I'm going to lose all my fucking votes. People came to see that chair.
Oh yeah, where's going
Don't
on
roast the
votes?
chair. But
Wow.
I would have been kidding. It's a nice chair. So
it is down to one vote.
Fuck.
I was about to say real quick, I'm going to put the link here one more time for whomever you think won the debate tonight. And I will announce it here in a minute. But we're at 1:55. So we'll go another 2-3 minutes. If somebody has any more questions for either TJump or Shane, and then we'll go to the winner, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yellow.
I will state, since we don't have any questions, I guess from watching some of your debates, Tom, I thought that we shared an understanding of what the word objective meant. Obviously, we found that we had very different understandings of what it meant. So that's a mistake that I made, because I did watch some of your debates, and I remember you talking to a guy named Jim, I don't know, Siegel, something like that. And he was talking about something called, great making properties. And you kept asking him questions about like, there are these things that we label as great, but you pointed out that he was unable to show that greatness was something that actually existed as a fundamental part of reality. And when I saw you ask him those questions, I thought, okay, he's asking the same exact questions about great making properties that I'm asking about morality. And so I guess that's part of why I thought we shared that understanding.
Dude, odds. What do we get? It's tied.
Rock, paper, scissors?
I could go in and vote for myself.
Yeah, but then he could do the same thing. So
I will use 2 accounts. It just becomes a contest of who can make the most accounts the fastest.
We got 22 votes. 22 votes, 35 people in the stream, and a 50-50 split.
God damn it. Well, I guess, I mean, you know what? Fuck. I guess I could say that I'm at least,
vote.
I I am a fan of your work, Tom, and I do consider you to be a very skilled debater. So I guess I'm proud of myself for tying with you at that. So hopefully the next time we argue with each other, what that means is we argue alongside each other. But
I'll give you a topic, and then that's what we should do. I
All right.
give you a topic.
We
I
should debate
assign your
about
position, and then
Islam.
boom, you argue.
But, yeah,
This is an objective. This is a subjective poll.
So I have a.
Right?
It is not. It's an objective poll.
No, it's not.
It is objective.
to the people that gave the answers.
The poll
But the
objectively
answers are
exists.
objective.
I don't think so. You're wrong.
Oh, okay. I can talk. So I just put the link in for those to go vote. So if you haven't already, hit the link and go vote. I might lose my atheistic shit if the first time we do it we have a tie.
Well, that's when the panel gets to decide the winner.
What panel?
Yeah.
The whole point was so we didn't have to do it.
you guys were like, this is going to be a tough one. I don't know. You guys were like, I don't know who's going to judge Shane and T-Jump's debate, but not me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fair enough.
Well, it's not just that. I'm even trying some different things going into the next tournament.
Okay.
Doing different things. So this is part of it.
Oh,
I did want to say, everyone, here's how truth works. Whoever gets the most votes is right. So if he gets more votes, then morality is objective. And that's how that works. No, it's to say, obviously.
You got two more votes and it's still tied.
Fucking. Why do people who disagree with each other keep voting at the same time?
Ugh.
Maybe it's because Tom and I are making the accounts at the same fucking time.
Put
Hurry up.
Put up a 2-minute timer, and at the end of the 2 minutes, it is what it is.
Okay.
All right. Let me pull the timer back up.
I'll celebrate as though I won and drink as if I lost, no matter what happens.
Huh.
Hell yeah.
No.
Is there a limit to the number of times you could vote? Could you just go in with a?
It's based on IP dupe. So I mean, somebody could launch a VPN and do it again. But
So you're gonna have to
VPN and just keep creating them over and over again and just vote infinitely. 1,000 votes for TJump.
Okay, it's going. You got that clock going?
Yep, and I gave an extra minute. I gave 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. All right. So right now,
speaking of VPNs, anyone who has a VPN, if you ever have a live stream, turn your VPN off before you do that shit. Because I did a stream it was the one with Thomas Westbrook, and I didn't realize that I still had my VPN on. And I went back and watched it, and I was like, dude, his connection seems fine. Mine at the beginning, when I said Shane the Skeptic, it just said Shane Skeptic because it fucking skipped the. I'm like, okay, now no one knows who I am.
I mean, I'm using a VPN right now.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need to use a good VPN. So this show is brought to you by NordVPN. Use offer code TART to save 20% on a yearly subscription.
And you just got lost being monetized.
No, we didn't.
What'd you just say?
Who said
Yeah,
what?
like we were monetized in the first place.
We lost a what?
Monahuda, what? What a huh?
Monahuda.
What?
Monahuda. That's a good word.
Monetizations.
Eddie, that was not scientifical.
Or practical.
All right, where are we at on time?
Damn, I just started it. Chill out, bro.
Well, I want to know because we got a winner right now. I don't want to.
There's the winner.
Some white dude from Europe in the.
That picture doesn't it kind of look like Jesus has hooves, like gigantic hoof feet, like 4?
Yes.
Did he not?
Oh my god!
I might have been reading the wrong. I might have been reading the wrong Bible. I need to go study what people believe.
I like how he
had hoofs.
This shroud without smearing any blood anywhere.
I like how the shroud gets his face in perfect proportions, like if you were painting it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like his face must have been perfectly flat, but still have some kind of dimples.
He was God. TJump. He was God.
Well, it's one thing. When they say there's no evidence, he left us perfect evidence. Some cloth.
We have the science. We have the scientific evidence.
I mean, what else do you need? What else do you need right now to believe?
All right, real quick before we run out of this time, just so everybody can see it. The weekly schedule for the Atheist Network group. You still find us at TART.live. Monday through Sunday, we got shows a day. Check it out.
All right, where are we on time? Oz, can I announce it? God damn it, we're tied again.
I'm about to pull it up.
Don't use that name in vain.
That's a rule for you, not for me.
If we pass the time, do we
Rules
just go to
are
the
objective.
next vote, or do we?
Damn it. Just somebody else vote in the next 2 seconds.
God damn, this shit is. Let's turn my volume down.
I feel like they're doing it just to make the numbers even up, to troll us. Oz.
Yes,
It shouldn't tell you the results until we actually tally the results.
Well, I can't control that part of it. So here, let me think.
He said, let me think. Let's flip a coin.
All right, so I'm hitting the refresh right now. It's at 50-50, 14-14. The next vote that comes in is the winner because we're not going to stay here until 2 fucking a.m.
Who wants to choose the winner?
Winner, chicken dinner.
That's a lot of votes, though. We finally got almost 30 votes.
No, that's great. I love
42
that.
people watching, though. With 42 people watching, though, you'd think they'd vote. Maybe they need the link. Here's the damn link.
Are they not listening?
Do you need a link? Isn't there a way to use the Nightbot just as like type a 1 to vote or something, or type a 2 to vote?
Yeah, and here's the thing, TJump. I love that you said that because I'm going to be talking to the Nightbot people tomorrow because I keep trying to log in with my Twitch account and it keeps saying error. So I can't do it the easy way. It's just bullshit.
Can't you log in with TART like on the YouTube channel?
Hey, this just in. I got the poll results. It says that Tom and Shane has to dance off. They got to dance off, guys. Yeah.
Oh shit!
We'll dance off, and then we'll decide. So come on, Tom, shirt off, bud. Let's get it going.
I was going to say, will I do a better routine when I start out with more clothes on? Can I first put more clothes
Last vote
on?
was in, and somebody else voted.
Hold on,
I was just about to get my.
Literally at the same time, 2 votes came in for both of them.
That's insane.
They're trolling us.
Yeah,
Dude.
they're trolling us now, man. Fuck.
Next time
Maybe
money to vote.
Maybe it's glitched and they're just 15 people voted for me, but it just counted for
Sure
both of them.
contested it.
No, because they're coming at different times.
It's glitched. It's just glitched.
What's up, Pasta Mike?
Hey, what's going on? I just wanted to say that I voted, but I'm not going to tell you who for.
Oh, you don't have to.
You voted for Oz.
These nuts.
Wow, we went there.
Don't get all embarrassed. Pasta's my boy. We talk a lot of sweet
Obviously.
stuff behind closed doors.
Obviously.
Sit up.
Yeah, it does look
Shut up!
like your camera's pointed up a little bit. Like
What kind of camera do you use, Eddie?
The one that's connected
what kind
to
of
Android
what kind
phone.
of mic? What kind of mic is that?
People being rude to me.
This is a PreSonus mic.
PreSonus. Okay.
A what?
PreSonus condenser mic.
Because I noticed in your streams you always have like really good quality video, and I can live stream from my Canon camera, but if I do so, the glitching is like crazy. So that's why I just use the integrated webcam, because even though it's not as good, at least it's more like faster, more up to date.
Like is
Well,
your
Pasta Mike
processor?
has turned me on to the
turned you on.
Sony
We just stopped at 3.
I knew someone was gonna-
A6300, the Sony A6300 camera, and I'm going to be using it from now on.
I would
use-
recommend the
has become-
one Sony camera. The
Our
ZV-1.
wait for the results has become an ad.
I use the
ZV-1.
6400 actually, so I use the same Sony brand. Just the same-
Sponsored
I'm
by
not a-
Sony ZV-1s and Ted's
I'm
Montana
not as
Grill.
rich as you, Tom.
Ted's Montana Grill.
Yeah.
Have you
This
ever?
is a hobby for me, so it's hard to
Yeah.
even justify a 6300.
Right. I don't know if anyone's ever
ZV-1.
done this, but like I've had streams where like I don't know if I had acne or my face was just looking not good, which is always, but particularly not good. Then there have been times where I'm like, I'm actually really glad I don't have the good camera working. I like this one because you can't see all the imperfections. But with a good quality camera, you could see every imperfection, every crease under the eye, every freckle, every mole.
I don't
On
have
this
any
camera, I
imperfections.
look-
I don't have to worry about that.
It's actually not a bad thing. Like
Hey.
even if you have like pimples or whatever, people will like super chat that, and so your pimples will make you money. Like mistakes are a good.
Oh shit!
Hey,
I never
Oz,
had it work that way. When my
have
pimples
a
are
winner?
making me money, I
Oz,
like
Ozzy, Oz, let me toss this over to you, bro. So, can you comment on who you felt was the stronger of the two debaters?
Well, see, the whole point in doing this is that I don't get mixed up in this conversation.
Like,
I didn't have to.
I mean, like, what side do you line up with as far as your philosophy?
I think Tom and Shane both know that I lean more towards the objective.
Yeah, he leans toward objectivism.
Okay.
And for the record, I did not vote.
Yeah. Was gonna clown on Oz a little bit for when I called into the show and I asked some questions about like why you believed in objective morality. Not that these were the only things you said, but some of the first things you were saying were like there has to be one, because if there isn't one, then this could happen. And I was like, it's like when people argue for God and they're like, no, but there has to be a God, because if there isn't one, then this unfortunate thing that I don't like. And I was
appeal
like,
to consequences.
Yeah, I was gonna roast Oz for that, but
I'll have to go back and listen to that because I don't remember saying that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, you didn't only make arguments that horrible. No, I remember.
Okay, what was he saying?
It's like cool. If I don't get myself kicked off, I haven't talked enough shit.
Yeah, I'm biased on it too because I am a moralist myself, so I didn't vote either because to me that makes moralism makes the most sense. So
I was curious of what your thoughts would be, particularly Eddie, considering that you're a moral realist. So in that aspect, you agree with Tom. But it seemed like when you were on my channel, you were saying like you agree that like if naturalism was true, that you don't think morality would be objective. So it's almost like.
Oh, so we got to vote? We got him in, bro? What's going on?
They literally come in at the same fucking time.
God damn
Yeah,
it.
if I was going to debate somebody like Tom, I would go the route that you're talking about trying to ground morality with moral realism. But I think moral realism is the more tenable position. But also, like I said, I don't think it's a good argument for God. I like
that.
There's normative ethics. I mean, there's all kinds of ethical theories with moral realism that a naturalist can take.
Right. Well, apparently, the folks in the realm that are doing the votes are thinking that they're split down the middle. So, Oz, what are we going to do about this?
We got it.
Oh, is it in? We closing up the thing? Let's get a drum roll.
We got.
Before I announce it, I do want to say I have no problem either creating a new stream and doing this, Shane, if you want to do it. But Otangelo said that he will debate you on theology. He said that that's what you guys want to talk about. He will come on and chop it up. So I have no problem doing it. My whole crew's in bed, so I got the whole night ahead.
Yeah. Well, recently, without getting into the details of it, Justin Downing talked about wanting to have a discussion with me. I would much rather talk to Justin than Otangelo. Justin might actually be worth my time to have a discussion with. Otangelo,
are you dodging?
Oh, I've already talked to
I'm considering dodging. I might dodge. So if anyone wants to know,
the Justin conversation was going down in the next week or two. I already talked to him, but I didn't know if you would do it even just for fun. I was throwing it out there.
Yeah.
But no, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching Ultimate Debate Live. The winner of tonight's debate is Shane the Skeptic. Woo!
God damn it, Tom.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do when I win, but hey. Yep.
Tom, all that money.
This is what a winner looks like. Not as good as you might have hoped. Just me. There's a globe. So
Shane, you have 1 minute. Final words.
He's gone global.
All right. Well, I'm just going to say that it looks like my globe beat TJump's chair. So take that chair. I thought it would have been funny right after winning to go, I changed my mind. It's objective. Just to really fuck with everyone that agreed with me.
Yeah, because they were trolling us anyway.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. No, like I said, I think that a lot of the disagreement came in to play with. And again, I thought that we shared an understanding of what it meant for something to be objective. Given some of the other debates, the way that he was using the word, it seemed to imply the same definition that I had. I was wrong about that, so that's my own problem. So that did sort of mix up the debate. But I'm somebody who thinks that you can say that it is wrong in every case to do something, but it being universal doesn't mean that it is therefore objective. And when I say that I don't think it's objectively immoral to, I don't know, punch a baby in the face, what I really mean is this badness property, the properties that make it bad are not things that actually exist in the universe as some fundamental part of reality, that this is bad or good. It's just our subjective feeling of it. And that's my position. So, fucking Atangelo, would you be mature? Sometimes when I say, you know what, I might not debate this person, they're like, oh, you're running. It's like, no, you just might not be worth my time. But whatever.
Where are we mailing Tom's chair? Where are we going to send Tom's chair? What's your address, bro?
But no, Tom, Shane, thank you guys. Had a great time tonight. I think everybody watching, listening did. And yeah, we'll look forward to the next one. And Shane, I have Tangelangelo's contact information. So if you want to hang out and have some fun, I have no problem doing it because, like I said, my crew's in bed for the night. And there we go. There's the proof. But we can get it on. And if you haven't already, go check out Pasta Mike at Normalizing Atheism.
I just think it's funny how like he's the one who canceled the debate with me. And then when he re-challenged me and I said, I don't think so, he's like, oh, you're scared. You can't defend your position.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, but I accepted a debate. And then you were mad because I said, fuck.
In addition to checking out Pasta Mike at Normalizing Atheism, go ahead, Shane, and carry on.
I just read, nope, cheap excuses.
I gotta pee.
I mean,
I'll see you guys later.
All right, take care, man. I mean, you're the one who said you wouldn't debate me because I said fuck and then debated people who say fuck. So if I'm making excuses, that's fine, Atangelo. I don't give a fuck
check
about
out
you.
Shane the Skeptic at his channel as well, where, yeah, you get a lot of this stuff too. We get a lot of
I just want to say I might have come off, if anyone's unfamiliar with me, don't think that the things that I just said about Atangelo are the way that I talk to Christians. There are plenty of good, decent, intelligent Christians, as is evidenced by the guy below me. They're not all like Atangelo. If you don't know any nice, polite, intelligent Christians, then go watch this guy's show, Brute Facts, with Eddie Kroom.
What happened to his camera?
Appreciate it, man.
It looks like a GIF.
Hey, Oz.
Your mama does too.
Oz, you got a big thing coming up now. We got the show tomorrow with the up and coming small content creators, right?
No, that's Sunday.
And what else you got on Sunday? We got the ATL call-in show.
No, that's it. It got paused 1 week because I already had these things scheduled before we got on his schedule for the show. So Sunday, I'll be with Derek on Myth Vision at 1:00. Then we have Jaytheist at 7:00, and then we have the Turn Up Show at 9:00. So Sunday's going to be crazy. And then tomorrow night we have Dave Warnock, Derek Lambert from Myth Vision, Shannon Q, and Jenna Belt coming to talk about deconversion, deconstruction, mental health, all that stuff. So it's going to be a crazy weekend.
Awesome. And I know that Jaytheist, he's been on my radar on Facebook, so he's a really cool cat. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah. Him and I've talked quite a bit over I'd say the last 3 weeks or so. Him and I've talked a lot because he's a former pastor, comes from the same Christian background that I come from, and so far I love all the conversations we've had.
Hey, and your boy down there, Eddie Kroom, he's got some good guests coming up on the Brute Facts podcast. He's got Graham Oppie on the 11th of May. You guys go check out his channel. He's got Dr. Richard Carrier coming on June 3rd, Eddie. Am I right?
Yes, June 3rd, Dr. Richard Carrier.
I heard you're working on getting Ken Ham on your show.
Oh, no. Ken Ham. Ken Ham. None of them will ever be on there.
Frank Turek is out the week after that.
No. He's just as bad.
I would love, but you need to talk to people who are bad like that, because I would love more than anything to sit down, have a discussion with Eddie Kroom and Frank Turek. Just me, Eddie Kroom, Frank Turek.
Frank abuses philosophy so bad. I wouldn't have the stomach for it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys.
He's like a smarter Kent Hovind.
Well, you guys killed it tonight, by the way. Loved the show, Oz. I watched the whole thing. You guys fucking rock. Shane the Skeptic, well-deserved win. I actually, hey Shane, no disrespect. I line up with Tom's argument. This is one of my arguments. I line up with Tom. But you gave a fucking fantastic run. You deserve
man.
if the majority vote. I line up with Tom with this one. Sometimes Tom loses. Tom lost to Jeff at the end of the day, and Jeff is the weasel troll,
Jeff paid somebody off.
Yeah. Yep. Good job, man. Maybe you can come back on and do some more debates. And hey, guys,
When's the Eddie and Jeff
and
debate?
same debates.
Let's
I love.
Maybe let's do it, troll.
But I wanted to say I'm also and Oz hit me up the other day about the call-in show, but I had work that night, so I didn't have time to schedule it. But I do miss taking callers. Haven't done that in a while, and I'm good at it. I've been told by at least 1,000 people.
You are good at the
Thank you. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll find some time in our schedules. Or I mean, if I ask for a day off 2 weeks in advance, I could get that day off. So is it the same day that you guys do the call in? That's the Monday night show. Okay.
Sure.
Then at some point we'll just schedule a particular Monday.
I'm sure Oz can create his own show for you, bro.
I mean,
nice.
Stand up, let me see that shirt, bro. I didn't even see. It just says Faith to me. So let me see that shirt, bro. That shirt is. Let me see. Because I was like, this guy's either a George Michael fan or he's into Faith. That shit is tight.
Faith is bullshit.
Faith.
Much love, folks.
Thanks, Pasta. And Eddie, I know Jeff has to dip out, but before we go, Eddie, you asked me you wanted to say something or do something or be something or in the private chat.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was just going to talk about the guest coming up, but Pasta did a better job than I could. So I'm awesome. I'm ready to go. Appreciate you having me on, Oz.
Cool. Appreciate it. And again, I know Tom had to dip out, but thank you, TJump. Thank you, Shane. Just Jeff, as always, appreciate it. Eddie, thanks for coming in and reffing and modding. And Pasta Mike, thank you for the cameo appearance. This is the Atheist Network Group. And this is also the Ultimate Debate Live. And I'm going to string this. No, I'm kidding. We're going to go, but appreciate it. And Shane, just hit me on Facebook if you want to do that with below. I have no having some fun.
I like how I said that, like, I'll think about it, but probably not. So I didn't even pick one, and he's in the chat like, you're not going to do it. He's responding as if I declined, and I didn't even make a decision yet.
It's because you're scared, Shane. You're scared. Just admit it.
Well, and Shane, he already knows on our platform we don't do the Dark Dolphin shit. He's going to have to be respectful. It's not going to last. So, but everybody out there, we may or may not be back tonight. But just know we got a jam-packed weekend, and we out.